Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 130 of the Mythos Busters, a Arkham Horror the card game podcast. God, I'm butchering this. With me is Ian. Hi, Ian.
Hello.
I'm sorry.
I too like Arkham the Horror.
Oh boy. Wow, it's just I'm still tired from Iron Man is my excuse for that.
Oh yeah. I was the same way all week.
Yes.
Oh.
Just took it right out of me.
That mysterious voice you hear in the background. Maxine.
Who? Wait.
Hello.
Who? What? Where? Me?
Who?
Yeah, that's me.
Maxine Newman
Sup?
and Duke.
That's
Hello,
me.
Duke.
Hi. Yes, that's my name.
We have an equal balance of Mythos Busters and FFG designers with us tonight for a super fun episode. We're going to be going over some SCARLET KEYS stuff, which if you haven't seen all the hype, I don't know what rock you're living under. We're going to go over some Iron Man experiences because both Maxine and Duke, you participated in Iron Man this year.
For the first time ever.
Awesome.
For me.
Yeah.
Same.
And if we have time left over, we'll talk a little bit about Edge, but knowing our previous history, there is no way we are going to have time for that. We're just going to kind of zip through our show intro here because I know everyone with us live and everyone listening basically wants to hear Maxine and Duke talk, and Ian, you and I are just, I guess, vehicles for them to spread their good word.
Sure. I was waiting for that to take a wrong turn.
It's an awkward way to say that.
It ended up being more fine than I expected when you started that sentence, so I think we're good.
We are just a vessel.
Yep.
Well, you know how, bagels are just a vehicle for cream cheese, right? No one enjoys just the bagel. You want the cream cheese. So.
I mean, I beg to differ. I mean, I like a good cinnamon and brown sugar bagel. I like that a lot. Special to me.
That's too much sugar.
But then again, I would enjoy it much less if it didn't have cream cheese on it. So actually, you are completely correct. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've had good bagels, but
I like an egg bagel with either an egg bagel with butter, kind of like melted over, just toasted or microwaved for 10 seconds. That's it. Or like a garlic or onion bagel with onion and chive cream cheese. So good.
I'm sorry, but it's pronounced bagel.
No! I will end you. God.
Couldn't resist.
anyways, if you have an opinion on something, bagels, or I don't know, something about Arkham, you can call in and leave us a voicemail. We're not going to play any today because obviously we have big things to talk about. But if you do want to talk to us, it's 203-493-6984 or 203-493-MYTH. Or if you're on your phone on our Facebook page, you can just click call and it just calls us up and leave us a voicemail. Or I know people have mentioned this before too, maybe some anxiety about voicemails and messing up. If you want to record an MP3 as if it were a voicemail and email it to us at mythosbusterspod@gmail.com, that is also completely acceptable. There's not a preferential treatment, so you can send us that as well. Ian, what patrons do we have? Oh gosh.
Going well. Thanks to our board members, Chris B, Chris H, and Chris M, and Chris U, our conglomeration of Chris's. Morton, Jared, Ian, Kyle, Philip, Patrick, Abilio, Jesse, Chad, and Robert. Thanks so much, board members. And a special shout out to a random patron this time around goes to Cole Houston. Thanks, Cole. And thanks to all our patrons, because we just had our big Iron Man weekend and got to debut our cool new streaming setup, which would only be possible, literally only possible with the help of our patrons. So thank you for that, and we'll be able to use that streaming setup for the future for many years to come, hopefully. So Thanks so much. And we also were able to show off some of our Mythos merch during Iron Man, specifically some new Iron Man designs. So make sure you go to mythosmerch.com where you can view all our merch, including some of the Iron Man designs for Dream Eaters. I think that's about it for now. We'll probably have more extensive patron business around next time and give out some more job titles. But for now, we'll kick it on to the next segment.
Yeah, I also want to throw out, though, there were a number of people who took pictures of themselves in their Iron Man garb and stuff, and that was awesome to see. So, thank you all for that.
I love that design.
Nick is not here, so I'll
cool.
cover the news. There was a whole bunch of teasers for the next campaign, and it is called the Scarlet Keys, and that's what we're going to talk about. So, I mean, it was just, 2 weeks of tweets of these cryptic messages, seemed like
Pretty much, yeah.
dossiers, almost,
More or less.
of a
That's exactly what they were.
of an agency of some sort.
It's a dossiers, actually. If we're going by the bagel.
Dossiers. You got a dose of the dossiers. A dossier, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that news, I mean, just flows right into our main topic. I think this is the quickest we've ever gotten there, ever.
Just flying right there.
Well, I think, Ian, both you and I are equally as excited for this.
Yes.
Because we are also chomping at the bit for anything we can hear from Maxine and Duke about what we have to look forward to. So, first off, why Scarlet Keys? What can you tell us about this campaign? What's it about? As vague as you need to be, because I know you can't talk about certain things, but...
Yeah, I should say this is, the earliest we've ever really, teased a new cycle. So there's not a lot I can talk about, because we are eventually going to, actually announce it with, an article and everything. But we're not quite there yet. So, this is just kind of an early teaser. So there's some things I can talk about, but I will get in trouble if I say too much. Which actually, in and of itself, is a kind of the perfect vibe for the Scarlet Keys. Getting in trouble if you say too much, right, Duke?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything I just said was redacted.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so kind of, Scarlet Keys is a campaign I've wanted to do for a really long time, but for various reasons, mostly related to the product cycle, the release method for the game, just became kind of an impossible thing to do. So it was actually one of the first ideas I had when we were going to switch models. We did Edge of the Earth first, mainly because it was already in progress at the time that discussion started. So this was a big deal for me, this campaign. This is the campaign that I've kind of wanted to do for so long. As far as what it's about, mood-wise, lots of secret organizations, secret societies, government agencies, perhaps even. Yeah, it's about the color red. That's actually fairly accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one thing we can say, and it's that there's keys and there's scarlet.
Yes, there's keys, and the color scarlet features prominently. That's definitely true. And the keys aren't going to be like Innsmouth keys. You'll see.
Oh boy.
But there are keys.
So is the...
But yeah, it's yeah, sorry.
I was gonna say the Scarlet Keys. As someone who is not up on Arkham lore very much at all, which I've been for years, is this something that we've seen in other Arkham games, like the old CCG or Call of Cthulhu stuff? Because a lot of the pictures that we saw in the dossiers and stuff were art from previous games and previous characters. Is this something you're building on, and where did this... Is this an FFG mythos, or is this also coming from Lovecraft and Chambers?
So this is actually largely going to be new stuff and FFG stuff. None of the contents of the Scarlet Keys is directly derived from a Lovecraft story or anything like that, like some of the past cycles have been. However, you know me, I wear my inspirations on my sleeve. There's all kinds of references to other stories and media that I like. So, eagle-eyed fans, or pretty much everyone, will just be able to spot like all of them immediately. I'm sure some people already have. As for like what are the Scarlet Keys, I don't want to get into it too much because there's still a lot of mysteries that I want to leave open. But a lot of the characters that we teased in those little Twitter teasers are returning characters from the Call of Cthulhu LCG, who were part of a organization that collected keys.
Testing 1 2.
And they were
Testing
all
1 2 3. Testing.
People with
testing.
various
Okay,
red
we're good.
attire of different kinds. But then there's some new ones in there. But as far as like what are they up to and what are the keys, that's something that you'll have to see for yourself. It's gonna be cool though.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add, not spoiling anything further or anything else, is that I can really definitely say I see how much you put yourself into this campaign, Maxine, and it's really kind of staggering. Like, this is just utterly a labor of love. I can attest as someone who worked alongside you.
Oh, thank
it's
you.
Pretty amazing.
I mean, I hope everyone agrees. But yeah, we'll see. It's gonna be cool. I'm excited for it. It's my favorite campaign that we've ever worked on by far.
You say that every single time.
I know I do that every time, but like this one. Well, okay. So remember last time you had me on the show at some point, like, oh gosh, it must have been like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. It was definitely more than a year ago, and you were like, "What's the hardest, campaign you've ever designed?" And I was like, "Oh, definitely Edge of the Earth." And at the time, that was true, because it was like during the height of COVID panic and like suddenly working from home for the first time and huge changes in like workflow and structure and there were lots of things going on, and of course, personal things going on that just made that experience like really difficult for me. And for the longest time, I thought like, yeah, that's the hardest thing I've ever had to work on. I was like way wrong because Scarlet Keys like blew it out of the water. By the end of the Scarlet Keys, I was like, okay, no, I don't want to do that. And like, it was a lot. It's a lot.
Speaking of difficult and hard to deal with, Nick, you've joined us.
Oh, is Nick here?
I'm here. Hi.
Oh, harsh.
Well.
well.
Oh,
Look who decided to show up.
yep.
Yes, that's the next line. Yep.
I should have. I told my child, our new child, 3-week-old. I'm like, listen, kiddo, you gotta stop crying and go to mom because I got a podcast to do. And she was like, oh, you do? I'm sorry. Go ahead. And I realized I should have told her that about a half hour ago. But no, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
Obviously,
that's the trick. Yeah.
obviously, 3-week-olds don't listen to reason. So
Yeah.
Or a podcast.
Speaking of which,
Or podcasts.
congrats. I've already told you congrats, but now I can say it in front of a crowd.
oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, have we said this on the podcast yet?
I don't.
That
I
she's
don't
no,
think
we
so.
haven't had an episode since she's been. Well, I guess I haven't been on
Since
one.
she's existed.
Yeah, since she has been alive. So yeah, no, 3 weeks old. And she's doing great. Other than sleeping at night, that's still like she'll sleep all day and then she'll be up from like 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. and that's fun. I shouldn't complain because my wife Laura is actually the one who deals with the vast majority of it. So
Right on.
yeah.
Cool.
So, anyways, camera pan right back to Maxine. No offense, Nick. We love you.
Not at all. No, I totally get it.
One of the questions that we often ask, and I think the community asks in general, and we enjoy this. You mentioned years ago that you have a feelings board for campaigns. What were the themes or feelings for the Scarlet Keys?
Yeah, so like one of the big things in the Scarlet Keys that I wanted to kind of hammer in was this feeling of trust and deception. Like that And like we've kind of toyed with that before, where like there's characters you might not trust, there's characters that you can actively deceive, like the Lodge in TCU. But for this one, it's so much more. It's more of a web, really. There's so many characters that you can interact with, and they're not just like a big whole. All of them have their own motivations and their own goals, and you can really kind of interact with them more independently of one another than in past campaigns, which is pretty awesome. And because a lot of the campaign deals with like these secret organizations and secret societies and stuff, there's a lot of tension there where it's like you don't really know what they're up to. And yeah, I don't know, like Duke, does that is there anything else you would add about that?
I think there's definitely that sense of like everyone. I mean, I think any good story has characters who are guided by their own motivations and kind of write themselves.
Yeah.
And I would say, at least speaking very vaguely, when writing the characters for this campaign, it was very clear, like, oh, these are really well fleshed out characters who have a strong sense of like motivation, and they're kind of all going by their own, marching to the beat of their own drum in their own way.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily all share the same motivation. Like in past campaigns, they usually kind of do when they're part of like a group, you know. Well, okay, I was just gonna say, and like also I'm a big fan of the sort of clandestine, like we did a little bit of this in Innsmouth Conspiracy, but Innsmouth Conspiracy had so much more going on as well. There wasn't a lot of time to devote to it, but I'm really big into like the, you know, secret government agencies and like SCP Foundation, Delta Green, that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of that in this campaign too. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, there's a lot more that I feel like there's a lot that's said both by what's not said and by what's willfully omitted, or what people aren't telling you is in addition to what you're actually seeing. That's something to pay attention to and be aware of.
That kind of flows into what I was going to ask, which is, were there any particular movies or music or video games that were like motivating or inspirational while working on this campaign?
Oh gosh, so many. Yeah, so many.
I'm not surprised.
So like I already mentioned the SCP Foundation. I'm a big fan of that. Control, the game Control. I had just finished playing that like around the time that Edge of the Earth, we started working on Edge of the Earth, and I was like in love with it, like from start to finish. That game is amazing. What else though? Like Half-Life.
Ooh.
Believe it or not, yeah. Gosh.
I think I can see some X-Files. Is that
Yeah,
right?
X-Files for sure. Yeah, X-Files definitely. And yeah, I think a few people have already noticed a certain character who shares a certain aesthetic with a certain thief.
Carmen Sandiego?
That might be. Yeah, that might be part of it. If you haven't watched the Netflix series, you should. It's really good.
I need to watch
There's
it.
There's a Netflix
There's a
series?
Netflix series?
Yeah, the new one. Oh my god, really? You haven't? Okay, Netflix. Yeah, the Netflix Carmen Sandiego series. It's like 3-4 seasons, and it's really good. It's like, I would say it's like more for like, general audience, right? Like it's not like adult animation,
Right.
But it's really fun for everyone. Like I enjoyed the crap out of
Oh,
it.
so it's
It was
not
really
like
good.
the game show? Because that's my only experience with
No,
Carmen
no,
Sandiego is the game
It's
show.
like an actual. It's like an actual show with like a plot. It's like
Oh, okay.
it's like the new She-Ra in a lot of ways, because it's like taking this old property and kind of like rebooting it.
There's a new She-Ra? No, I'm kidding. That one I'd heard about.
Get out. I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, it's really good.
So you mentioned earlier about how Edge of the Earth was kind of when you guys were designing it, or I guess your team, and FSG started to look at the new release model, how it kind of shifted how you were designing Edge. So is this the first campaign where, like, from the very beginning, like, I'm thinking of doing this campaign, where you knew you were going into the new release model?
Edge was very close to that. So basically, like, with Edge of the Earth, it was like, okay, I have the theme and the story kind of outlined. And, like, that's when we started having those meetings, and I immediately shifted to, like, okay, we're going to do, like, this kind of product line. So it's not like I had, like, 3 scenarios finished or whatever that were Mythos packs, and then I suddenly switched. Nothing like that happened with Edge. But one thing that we started doing, like, we do these, like, annual goals for employees, and like you should. And one of my goals was, like, I want to explore this new product style and, like, try to figure out what this can mean for Arkham, like, moving forward in the long term. Like, what kind of stories can we tell now that we couldn't tell before? And for Edge of the Earth, we explored the idea of really big scenarios, like fewer but bigger. Right? Yeah. So there's only technically 5 scenarios in Edge of the Earth, but 2 of them are split into multiple parts. One of them can be played multiple times, and it's different each time. The one that can be played in different ways can be inserted in between any 2 scenarios. And one of the scenarios has 3 different versions. Like, there's a lot going on within each of them, and they're huge. Like, the smallest map in Edge of the Earth is Forbidden Peaks. All of the other ones are enormous. Just looking at, like, the amount of cards for each scenario, it's, like, a huge difference. So that was just one possible way to incorporate this new, like, release schedule, this new, like, campaign style. With Scarlet Keys, we're going to do something totally different. And we're going to continue to, hopefully, do different and new things each time, because there's so many different things that we can do. So for Scarlet Keys, I would say the big difference is it's kind of the opposite in some ways. Instead of fewer bigger scenarios, more smaller scenarios, if that makes sense. But when I say smaller, I just mean in terms of card count, not necessarily in terms of, like, game length.
That's what I was just going to ask, is if you meant quantity of cards or quantity of playtime.
Yeah, no, it's the playtime is actually probably more than a typical campaign. Maybe about the same as a typical campaign. Sure. But, like, each scenario you might only have a few locations in play instead of, like, 15.
Right.
Yeah. So Edge of the Earth was exploring this, like, enormous sprawling maps, and Scarlet Keys is a bit more contained in that sense, with the exception of a few scenarios that still go big. But yeah, I would say there's fewer cards devoted to each scenario, but let's just say there's more than 8 scenarios.
Oh,
okay.
And I'll leave it at that.
Iron Man intensifies.
Oh no.
You think Iron Man intensified? How about my work schedule?
Yeah.
I should note that was entirely my fault.
You should Iron Man a campaign where you have to design the whole thing in one day, in one sitting.
Oh God.
I will
do that.
I will enter.
You're like, it's the first 2 scenario campaign.
Oh my God.
I can't wait till you design a scenario with just 2 locations. That's it. Throw us all for a loop. Who loves Shortcut now? No.
It's like Labyrinths of Lunacy. You start with one location.
Yeah. Yep. So the experiences you had in designing Edge, and I guess just to clarify, and I don't know how much I can ask this question because it's behind closed doors.
Yeah.
But Duke, how much design did you have in Edge, and how much did you have in Scarlet Keys? Just for reference going forward, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that I was a playtester on Edge of the Earth, and I came on to design for Scarlet Keys.
Okay. Yeah. So to be a little more exact, for the people who don't know who Duke is, Duke was an intern with FFG. He helped me a bit on Innsmouth, and it actually was largely responsible for the Light in the Fog scenario, which was pretty amazing. And so I basically pleaded to get Duke on the Arkham team, and so Scarlet Keys was such like a big sprawling project. We actually had 4 different developers work on it.
Wow.
At different times. So I worked on it. Jeremy's worked on one scenario for it, and actually helped a lot with some of the player cards too. Aaron Haltom worked on a lot of the player cards, and also was responsible for like the initial foundational design for like 3 scenarios, and then Duke stepped in and basically ran those scenarios through development along with like most of the campaign structure as well, I would say.
Oh,
Maxine was kind enough to allow me to write. I love writing too, so I got to write some.
Duke is being too... So, it wasn't so much that I was kind enough to allow you to write, so much as I was like, Duke, help! Help! There's too much
Okay, I'll do
text, I can't do it!
Okay, 3,000 more words. Okay, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do it.
I do have to say, so Scarlet Keys is the most text we've ever written for a campaign. And I know some people are going to groan, but hear me out, hear me out. It's not all at once, like in Edge of the Earth. You're not gonna get 8 pages of prologue before you even start to play. So don't.
I mean, I like it
worry.
already.
I would say it's actually a quicker intro than. It's not as quick as Innsmouth, obviously, because Innsmouth, you just wake up and you're like, whoa.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would say it's a quicker intro than Circle Undone and Edge of the Earth.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Circle Undone has
I would
that
agree with
long
that.
prologue. And
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of text, but you won't read all of it in a single playthrough.
I usually
That's kind
don't.
of the big...
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No. I just... You know it.
I get you. Yeah.
Well, we made the font bigger just for you, so you can actually...
Oh, cut right to the heart of the matter. I appreciate that.
This is going to be game text that says, if you didn't read the story text...
Oh, that'd
yeah.
be amazing.
You are driven insane.
There actually are... No. I'm actually like... This is kind of funny. There actually are optional bits of story text in the Scarlet Keys. That's the first time we've ever done that.
Huh.
Yeah. Duke knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. Wholly optional.
I must say, I know there's someone in the chat saying it's only the Mythos busters who hate text. I'm just groaning because we have to do dissonant voices, so we have to read everything and record it. So
Yeah.
It's definitely not only the myth. I've definitely heard some people, and I totally get it. Like some people grumble where they opened up Edge of the Earth for the first time and there's like, 6 pages of prologue and it's like 30 minutes of reading before they start playing, and it's like, I get it. I only kind of went that far with Edge of the Earth because like I really wanted to introduce these characters.
Sure.
And it's kind of impossible to introduce all the characters without like up front lots of text. So it was kind of like okay, the people who are going to skip this are going to skip this anyway. So was kind of my thought.
Right.
But like, yeah, one of the big draws for Arkham is the story, is the narrative. So, yeah, I'm really excited for the narrative in Scarlet Keys. I think it's going to be great. And if you haven't heard, Aconite is doing a companion short story anthology called Secrets in Scarlet.
I've not heard.
Yeah, you should. We haven't like revealed the cover or anything yet, but that's going to be cool. And I'm writing something for it. So.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Tune in, kids, and read it. It's sure to drive you insane.
When are we gonna get the Netflix series, Scarlet?
Yeah, right.
Oh my goodness. Please. If we can get like the people who animated Castlevania to do it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Oh, yeah. Please and thank you.
So, another question I want to ask, and it's kind of 2 questions, but I think I'm going to blend them into one, is what did you learn from your experiences designing Edge that you applied to Scarlet Keys? And are you finding this a more difficult way or an easier way compared to the old model when designing a campaign?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Well, as far as what did I learn, I would say like the text thing was definitely one. I like with Scarlet Keys, like there's a lot of text, but it's split up a bit more. I don't think you'll ever be reading quite as much at a time as you were in Edge of the Earth. So I feel like if you're like sitting down to play, you'll get to the actual gameplay part a bit faster than perhaps you did in Edge of the Earth. And that's definitely something that like I learned from, you know, watching people play Edge of the Earth. Also, like, the way that players got attached to the various characters. And granted, like, Scarlet Keys, we were in the middle of developing it long before Edge of the Earth got into anyone's hands.
Right, yeah.
But seeing the reaction of people, like, getting attached to these characters and, like, no, please don't let, you know, so Ellsworth die, he's my favorite, or whatever, that makes me really excited for Scarlet Keys, because Scarlet Keys has, I think, the best cast of characters that we've ever done, or at least the biggest cast, but also, like, I would say that they're the best cast. So I'm really excited for that, too. And then as far as the whether it's more difficult or easier, that's a tough question. It's kind of both, because, like, the thing that's easier is it's a lot more freeing for us as designers. We can... Before, it was like, a Mythos pack has 60 cards, right? So if 22 of them are player cards, then 38 of them have to be the encounter set. Like, that's it. We can never do a Mythos pack with 50 cards and another Mythos pack with 70 cards. It can't happen. So it's very freeing in that way. When we're designing, we can design a scenario that only has 14 cards. Like, we can just do that now. That's awesome. We could never do that before. And likewise, we could create a scenario that uses like 80 cards if we really wanted to. So it's easier in that sense. However, it's definitely more difficult in the sense of like the campaign structure. Because it's not as simple as just, all right, they're going to play this scenario, and then they're going to play this scenario, and then they're going to play this scenario. We want to take advantage of that new release model, and part of that means doing funky things with a campaign that we've never done before. Like the scenarios that you could slot in any order, or the scenarios that have multiple pirates, or whatever. So that's like a big push for us. And that's been a lot more difficult, not only to design, but also to playtest.
Oh, sure.
Right, yeah.
Like, our playtesters definitely had their work cut out for them with this one.
I thought you were going to say hands full. I'd be like, oh, everyone's playing Harvey.
Their hands full.
Huh?
And that's why I started saying their hands cut out for them, because I was thinking their hands full and their work cut out for them at the same time.
Only one other thing that I would add, and this is mostly from my experience being an intern on Innsmouth Deluxe and getting to work on a Mythos pack, right? Is that the Deluxe packs before the entire encounter sets for the entire campaign had to be sort of solidified in a different way. And so it's like, as you're designing the scenarios, especially the later scenarios, all of that's a lot more set in stone in a different way than like from a design perspective.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're like, oh, this clearly doesn't work with like this encounter set that we've been doing the whole time. Is there a way we can make it work with all the scenarios better? You can actually do that now, as opposed to like before, when it's like the deluxe box, it's pretty much done, or it's sent off, right?
Yeah, that's 100% true. That's great. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, that's been a limitation for a long time, because we usually send the deluxe box out to production like a couple months before the cycle.
Sure.
So yeah, that's a big help to us.
So what I'm kind of picking up, and I want to clarify this too, with the new design model, do you find that the freedom is almost terrifying? Like you have such a blank slate in front of you for a campaign that like the old one at least kept you on some rails, and these new ones are like, how do I do everything but not too much?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's like the old adage that's like, limitation breeds creativity, right? When we were limited to the 8 scenario linear campaign, we had to find weird ways to keep that formula fresh. Like, they're chronologically out of order, or what if it's 2 4-part campaigns that are interwoven and it's 2 different parties, like that kind of thing.
No one will ever do that.
Right, yeah, like crazy. But like now, we don't have that restriction, which is good, but it does mean that, yeah, we have so many more options with regards to storytelling, which does make it a bit daunting at times. But the good news is we have such a deep, I think, reservoir. I mean, I can't speak for all of us, but like, I would say that we have such a deep reservoir of ideas to draw from that it lets us engage our creativity in a different way. Instead of just being like, how can we keep this formula fresh? Now it's just, what do we want to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a little bit like learning how to swim in slightly shallower, nicer water, and then finding yourself dumped into the middle of the ocean. The same principles still apply. If you have a strong vision, or if you have a strong sense of like what you want the thing to be or where to go, then you're not going to flounder no matter where you are. I mean, you will flounder if, you know, it's a storm and Cthulhu is rising from Relay and you're going insane, but that's a whole other bag of Dholes. You know?
Bag of Dholes.
Oh boy.
Hashtag bag of Dholes.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite questions is, and Duke, I don't think you've been around for one of these. So you know, I'd love your answer as well. With no context whatsoever, like no explanation, nothing. What 4 investigators that are released, obviously, so far, would you tell people to run into this campaign face first? Whether it be mechanics, theme, background story, like whatever. But don't tell us why. Just the 4.
Okay. Don't tell you why?
No, it has to be just...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the tease, right? Like, people want to think,
Yeah.
like, well, why did she say those ones?
Well, I would say Roland.
Yay.
Okay.
Roland Banks.
Well, he's a Fed. That makes sense. If there's... Sounds
Yeah.
like there's some...
Maybe Trish.
Okay.
I was going to say Trish.
You were
Fine,
gonna
I
say
won't say
Trish?
Well,
Well,
I mean,
It's okay if you agree.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, we have to pick different ones, okay?
Okay. Well, then you pick 2. Are we each picking
Okay.
4?
I was gonna think you each pick 4, and you can overlap if you
Oh,
want,
okay.
just to see how you feel. But
Oh, okay. Well, then in that case, Roland, Trish.
And then maybe 2 other
Maybe-
copies of Roland and Trish.
There you go. Yeah.
parallel Roland
Trish.
to parallel
Roland.
Roland 8. Yeah.
I would say maybe Winnie. And,
Weird. Okay.
And let's see. I'm trying to think of Mark Harrigan.
Ooh.
Oh, interesting.
Roland and Mark. Hey.
I mean, don't read into that. Like,
No,
we
everyone
got
has
it.
to.
We got it
all
now.
over the place. My reasoning is all over the place.
That's the point.
What about you, Duke?
I'm gonna give a few reasons. I'm sorry. I'm gonna break your
good.
question.
All right, you're off the interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no! I got voted off the
you would-
island.
Mute
of the
him.
interview.
Do what you gotta do.
I mean, it's Trish because she's on the job, right? And she's she's gathering intel, and I would say also Preston because he has a lot of money and he needs to find himself. He just really needs that.
Yeah.
And I would also say Gloria because she's got a book to write and she's got a lot of stories she's got to write. And then just I would say Daniela Reyes. And no reason. You know why.
I would perhaps also like. I know I already said 4, but now I'm thinking maybe Jenny too would be a cool one.
Okay.
I'd like to see Jenny and Preston go along and just yeah.
The 2 billionaires just defeating their problem with money.
Who's that on a motorcycle right there?
Jane Cobb said in chat, Preston is on his Eat, Pray, Love vacation and Gloria's writing it.
Yes.
Eat the rich, pray, love.
Glorious.
That's amazing.
Eat the rich, pray for your life, love still living.
Nick, there's a very important question.
Oh my god, you
wanted to
actually
ask.
put it on here?
Yes, I did.
Jesus Christ. All right, who would win in a fight, the Scarlet Keys or the Florida Keys?
I don't know how to answer that.
Well, you gotta. We can't move on until you do.
Okay, well, one's a place.
Uh-huh.
Oh, so the Scarlet Keys are islands? Nice.
No, wait, what? I'm so confused. The answer is N/A.
Oh. North
Duke, your
America
opinion?
wins.
I mean, this will be redacted the minute that I say it, but I said. Did you not hear it?
Oh, no.
Did we get that?
Must have cut out.
Okay, good. No.
Oh. Okay, I'll say it again.
It's terrible.
Wow.
I
Did
got
you-
it.
did you not hear it?
Yeah, I redacted
The
it.
connection just is really unlucky tonight.
Good point.
Yeah, oh, wow. What a bad
Oh,
connection.
that was totally me faking you out. It was all redacted. It was it would be Florida Keys.
The Florida Keys would win. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh. I mean,
We were brainstorming. I'm like, what questions... Like, what questions can we even ask about the Scarlet Key? You know what I mean? Like, we're brainstorming questions, and I was just throwing out obviously very intelligent questions, because this was the one that Scott put on here, so...
Like, what keychain are the keys kept on?
Yeah.
Like, what's the little, like, fob or lanyard thing?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not much more, and I know everyone's like begging for
Right,
more, but there's not much more I can say right
Yeah.
now. Aside from, you know, obviously stay tuned because you know we're just gearing up. So we're gonna be revealing a lot more in the future. Definitely like stick to the website and keep checking in like the summer.
All right.
I know that sounds like it's so long away.
I know.
It's so far away. I know. Like trust me, it hurts me as much as it hurts you, because like I want everyone to see it like so much. But you know, I did bring one thing.
I was gonna say, I know there's one more thing you can talk about.
Oh.
Yeah, there is one thing. Yeah. So how do we want to do this? Should I send it to you and you guys can read, or should I just post it and?
Why don't we? Oh gosh.
Why don't I read it?
Yeah.
I'll read it.
Read it out and then
Yeah. And then I'll post it in the
chat.
in the channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Read it.
Okay.
Read it so we all
So
get
this
to
is,
like at the same
Yeah.
time, and then we can.
Yeah. So I got special permission to spoil a card. So it's just, you know, it's just the one card. But I was like, you know, I want it to be a good card. So I was like, okay, let's start with a bang. We'll do an investigator.
Oh.
So you guys are going to see, for the first time, one of the investigators from the Scarlet Keys Investigator expansion. So, without further ado... and I was, you know, asking, like, Duke, which one should we spoil? and Duke chose this one, so this is on Duke.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
um,
It's for all you.
yeah. Are you ready?
I don't know.
So,
Is Duke? Why did you choose this one?
Well, can we hear it first?
I know.
Let's get to the card first.
I'm just trying to make everybody
Jesus,
wait. I'm
Scott.
so excited.
I see you shiver with anticipation.
let's do 30 minutes of interview
Patience.
questions first, and then
You know, let's pause here. Talk about Iron Man. We'll come back to this.
yeah.
Cut to
Okay, next.
commercial.
Do you wanna?
No.
I love
no.
trolling.
Back-
Okay, fine.
Go,
All right.
go.
So without further ado, say hello to Charlie Kane, the politician. I know everyone's been waiting for Charlie Kane for so long, and that's why Duke was like, we should just start with Charlie. And I'm like, okay. Charlie Kane is a neutral investigator. It's the game's second to only neutral investigator. He is 1 willpower, 1 intellect, 1 combat, 1 agility.
What?
No, I'm not trying to say something about politics.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're in good company.
He has the
if you were.
It's a little on the nose, MJ, right?
he's got the civic and socialite trait, and he's got 6 health and 6 sanity.
Okay.
And his game ability says you have 3 additional ally slots.
What?
3 additional ally slots. Free triggered ability. During a skill test you're performing, exhaust an ally asset you control. For this test, you get +1 skill value, plus an additional +1 for each skill icon that ally asset has that matches this test's
Oh,
type.
interesting.
So, for example, I believe Beat Cop has a combat icon, right? Yeah. So if you have a Beat Cop, you can exhaust your Beat Cop to give you +2 combat, +1, plus an additional 1 for the combat icon. If you exhaust a level 2 Beat Cop, you could do it on agility tests too, because he's got the agility icon. But even if they don't have a matching icon, you can just exhaust them for +1. There's no limit to that aside from the having to exhaust them. So if you have 4 allies in play, you could exhaust all 4 of them and get a big bonus to a single test. Yeah. And if they have multiple matching icons, you get an even bigger bonus. So if you exhaust, let's say, Greta Wagner, right? Greta has the level 3 version has combat, intellect, wild. If you exhausted her during a combat test, you'd get +3, and that would bring you all the way up to 4.
Wow.
That's
Not to mention a lot of allies have passive boosts as well.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah.
prepare for arithmetic.
Right, like so.
My
So the Beat Cop would bring you to 2, right? Because he has a base.
It would actually bring you. He
4.
would bring your base to 2, and then when you exhausted him, he'd boost you all the way to 4.
And
If you have 2 Beat Cops in play, you could exhaust them both and go all the way up to like 6.
What's his? Did you already read his Elder Sign?
7.
I missed the Elder Sign. If you did,
I did not. I skipped it. So the Elder Sign is Elder Sign effect +3. Ready an ally asset at your location.
so
plus
do we
3.
do we finally have one that's
Plus
just straight
3.
up better than Skids' Elder Sign? +3, ready an ally.
Well-
Like that's wow.
Charlie's +3 is largely buoyed by his low
Oh,
stats.
totally.
But that's what.
So like if you don't,
Yeah.
if you didn't exhaust an ally, then the +3 will just bring you to 4.
Right,
you know what
right.
I mean? Flavor text. It can be arranged. It's just a matter of acceptable terms. And he's card, and I know because some people are gonna make a spreadsheet. He's card number 18.
I mean, that's the really
Card
important
number
part.
18.
Yep.
So I'll post that in the chat now for the people listening
Yeah,
live,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
can then distribute it as you.
Oh, someone's going to distribute it way before us. So let's just throw it out.
This is true. Look at that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
At first, when
So-
you're like 6 health, 6 sanity, I'm like, ooh, that's kind of squishy. But the fact that you can have 4 allies out before
Yeah.
Charisma-
Yeah.
That's insane.
No, he's effectively immortal.
Yeah.
Like, once you get the allies out, yeah. So I did hear a few people saying deck building.
Yes.
I did promise I'd give 1 card. So, I can show the back.
Oh, yay.
Because yeah, it's still the same card.
That's true.
Still the same card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all
So
one card.
yeah, I'll go ahead and read this. Deck size 30.
What?
Class choices. At deck creation, choose 2 classes: Guardian, Rogue, Seeker, Mystic, or Survivor. Deck building options are ally cards level 0 to 5, neutral cards level 0 to 5, cards from your chosen classes level 0 to 2.
Interesting.
And then requirements are Bonnie Walsh, Burden of Leadership, and 1 random basic weakness.
So 0 allies, 0 to 5. He can take any ally in the game.
Yep.
He can
Yep.
take any ally in the game, bar none.
Oh, wow.
But he can only take cards from the 2 classes he chooses, and only up to level 2.
I like that. That's interesting.
So he can't take Miskatonic archaeology funding.
He can't take archaeology funding.
Darn.
He can take charisma because
Yeah.
it's neutral,
Yeah.
Yep.
which makes sense. He's on it. Yeah, it's an interesting 0 to 2. We haven't done a lot of 0 to 2, and it's interesting because it does cut out like some of the most powerful cards, but it also includes quite a bit. And I know that there might be some people who look at that and say, "Wow, that's really good. Like, that's super good. Does that blow Lola out of the water?" And all I will say to that is, Lola, all I will say to that is keep an eye on the next taboo list.
Is she finally getting forbidden?
That's where your mind goes. Wow. Wow.
Forbidden Lola.
Harsh.
Poor Lola.
No. Yeah, so mean to Lola.
She's
I
a
love
struggling
Lola.
artist trying to make her way.
Yeah, no, Lola's great.
As a fellow thespian, I love Lola.
Well, Nick, she was your first Iron Man playthrough.
She was my first Iron
Right.
Man playthrough. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Lola's great, and to be perfectly clear, it's not going to be like a huge, it's still taboo. Taboo has certain restrictions, certain rules that we abide by.
Right.
So it's going to be a light touch, but I think that the light touch will have ripples.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Nice.
Yeah.
Just a wafer thin mint.
She'll get her time in the spotlight.
Yeah.
deserves.
Yeah. So then I was chatting with marketing, and I was like, but we really can't just reveal the one card, right? Like it's kind of like nothing without the other signatures to kind of like back
That's
it up,
true.
right?
Maxine, you
Am I right?
tease.
Am I right? Am I right? So do you want to see the rest?
Maxine, can I read?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Which one do you want to read?
Chat's like, no, we're
Can
good.
I read the signature?
Oh, people in
Can I read
chat are
Bonnie?
saying no. Okay, all right, no, it's fine. Let's move on to Iron Man.
Oh yeah, okay, cool.
Next topic.
No more.
That's people in the chat like no. Oh, that's really funny.
Yeah, let's do it. All.
Um,
Yeah. Redacted and redacted. Yeah.
Redacted. Okay. Yeah, let's why don't you read my extremely good friend Bonnie Walsh.
All right. This card is a unique ally, Bonnie Walsh, loyal assistant. She's a 3-cost asset. She has 2 wild icons.
Ooh.
And she has the ally, civic, and assistant traits. Charlie Kane deck only, of course. And her ability is a reaction ability. After you exhaust Bonnie Walsh, ready another ally asset you control. Limit once per round.
Nice.
She has 2 health and 2 sanity. Takes up an ally slot. And her flavor text is, don't forget that you have a 9 p.m. appointment with Mr. Sanford. Shall I book your usual table at La Bella Luna? Also, you bought me a wristwatch for my birthday. Thank you very much. And it's card number 19.
Wow. So she exhausts for
Yeah,
plus
so-
3.
Right, she exhausts for +3 just by herself, and then when she exhausts, or after she exhausts, you can ready someone else.
Wow.
She gets stuff done.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's very good, very good. Yeah, so like, it's cool because like just her by herself will get you to 4 on a test, but only once. So like, it's interesting when we were playtesting, we saw a lot of different Charlie builds, and there's like the I'm gonna go all in on one test Charlie build, and then there's the like I'm gonna be good at everything Charlie build, and then there's the like I'm gonna be really good at these 2. Like I'm gonna take all of the allies that have like these icons and be really good at those skills, and like not that good at everything else. You know what I mean? You can even do like spell casting Charlie, which is a lot of fun. Yeah. And then, do you want to read the weakness?
I can. It is a burden of leadership. The trait is flaw, and the text is revelation. If you control no ally assets, shuffle burden of leadership back into your deck. Otherwise, for each ally asset you control, either exhaust it or deal it 1 direct damage and 1 direct horror. And the quote is, the flavor text is, I tell myself it was for the greater good. Was it, Bonnie?
Huh.
Nice.
I love that art too.
And it's card number 20. And it is very dramatic art.
Yeah.
Could you
Yeah.
post it for us, Maxine?
What'd you say?
Could you post it, Maxine?
Yep,
can't.
I dropped it in there. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so it's cool. Charlie actually shares a lot in common with Leo. The big difference is Leo gets set up quickly, right? You can drop those allies in, and then they're kind of disposable
Right.
because it's like, I didn't really pay that much for them, and I didn't spend an action, so it's okay if they die. Charlie's kind of the opposite. You want to build up your crew and get like the best allies available, and like kind of keep them in play for as long as possible. So if they can't tank for you, then you need to do the exhaustion. And if you do the exhaustion, then you're going to be kind of boned for 1 turn.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing these. This is fantastic.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I know Charlie Kane
Thank you.
has been a people who are into the Arkham lore and everything. He's been a fan favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Just people have been begging for him, and there's been so much. What do you call it? People guessing at what he's going to be. A lot of people guessing Rogue, but I did see a lot of people guessing neutral too, and thinking he can just be. And people guessing ally stuff, right? He's a politician, he's a schmoozer, he's a charismatic guy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and every investigator manifests a little differently in each of our Arkham Files games. Partly because the mechanics of the games are different, but also partly because the game has its own needs and its own we really need a character who's good at this, that kind of thing. And I've kind of had this Charlie design or something similar to it in my back pocket for a really long time. Kind of wanting to do an ally-focused investigator who kind of isn't that good on their own or is almost useless on their own, but can build up a crew. And my original thought was I want to have one investigator who plays a Lord of the Rings character. You know what I mean?
Say.
Yeah, where you're just loading up the board state with allies and then exhausting them to do things for you, which makes a lot of sense for a politician. But kind of held on to it for a long time, mostly because the card pool just wasn't deep enough for it yet. There just weren't enough allies. But now we've definitely hit that critical mass where there's so many allies in the game that not only can you build a very effective deck that just has lots and lots of allies in it, but you could build many different kinds of decks that are like that, especially with that class choice in there as well. There's a lot of different options for deck building with Charlie, which is great.
Yeah, the versatility is really exciting, and being able to pull from all 5 classes, regardless of what you pick for your classes. I think that's really fun. I'm excited to play around with that.
Yeah, I saw there's some of my favorite decks that I saw during playtesting, there was the heavy willpower mystic Charlie, which is really fun. You can do a big money Charlie if you include lots of rogue allies and lots of the rogue allies who can spend money, but then also some of the rogue allies who can net you more money, like Dario. My Charlie deck that I always ran was just I'm gonna get all my stats as high as possible, Charlie. You know what I mean? So every ally that has 2 stat boosts. There's also very fun, often almost ludicrously fun Charlie deck is Animals Charlie. Because there's nothing more ridiculous than Charlie Kane riding on a sled, holding up his staff of animalism and commanding the forces of nature to do his bidding. It's ridiculous, and I love it.
If Charlie Kane discovered Animal Crossing.
Right.
Piddly Dwarple in chat says Druid Charlie, and that's not what I'm gonna.
Yeah, Druid Charlie.
That's totally what I'm gonna. That's my first
Beastmaster Charlie.
Yeah.
Beastmaster Charlie. It's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know people were getting in in the past, years ago, getting into heated debates about what class he would be. So was ultimately making him neutral just a mechanical thing because he dips into so many allies, or was there also some theme there? Ultimately, because there's only been one neutral investigator before. Was Charlie always going to be neutral, or was there some decisions there?
Like I said, I kind of had this Charlie design in my back pocket for a long time. But that's not to say that that's the only reason why we did it. There were a couple different versions of Charlie that we were floating around. One of which was in Eldritch Horror, he's really good at buying things for people. But we kind of did that with Bob.
Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense in Eldritch Horror. It's making connections and I'm going to get you with the right people at the right time. And because a lot of the assets that you purchase in Eldritch Horror aren't necessarily items, they're services and things like that. So it makes a lot of sense. But since we kind of just did that with Bob, I didn't want to just kind of do that again. Sure. And plus there's another investigator in the cycle who's very support heavy. So I didn't want to just have 2 big support investigators in one cycle. It felt like maybe a bit too
Sure.
much. I gotta stop saying cycle. That's hard. That's gonna be hard to do.
It's a cycle. It's just shorter.
Yeah, it's a cycle. But like, I guess to go to the point of your question, like, neutral investigators are rare, but that doesn't mean that they all share the same like style. To me, a neutral investigator is just someone who can dip their toes in a lot of different areas, and for Charlie, that makes a lot of sense because it's all kind of about who he keeps with him, right? If Charlie's going out and recruiting, like, you know, government people and monster hunters and guardians, well, I didn't actually mean guardian like the class, but like people who protect, then is going to be very guardian heavy. But if he's going and picking up like criminals and people who have like ties to like the underworld, then he's going to feel more roguish and so on and so forth. If he's going to the university for help and he's recruiting professors and students and scientists, then he's naturally going to be better at investigating because it's basically like, you know, who's your small council, right? Like, who do you keep around with you?
Yeah.
And I think as a politician, that makes a lot of sense that your values are going to be very warped by who you listen to.
Yeah.
You know? Like, who's on your shoulder.
Yeah, like, I think I'm going to refer to my ally setup as the small council.
The small council.
I always refer to them as my task force.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like I'm looking at our show notes, and I don't want to move on just because Charlie's so exciting. Like I'm not someone who proxies cards, but I might proxy Charlie just to try him out with the current card pool, just because that's such a unique, like you said, we haven't gotten a neutral investigator since Lola, and he's such a unique, like this specific build is so unique. 3 ally slots right out of the gate. Oh my god, it's super exciting.
And you can boost it. Well, it's 4 ally slots out of the gate because it's 3.
Oh my god, you're right.
And then you can boost it to 6 with 6 experience. The difference is, like, he doesn't have the acceleration that Leo has.
Right. Yeah.
So Charlie is definitely an investigator who requires some setup. Yeah. Similar to, like, we've had some investigators before who, like, they can hit the gate running and be really good, like Ursula. And then some investigators who really require some time to like get set up and get their rig together, so to speak. Charlie's definitely one of them. He can't really do anything on his own. He needs those allies. And if you're building lots of 4, 5, 6 cost allies, you're gonna be in trouble. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to call in favors to make sure that you get those right people that you need.
Yeah.
Nice.
So you're saying take Survivor?
I have found that there's actually a pretty good spread of classes. Like, one of the reasons I was really pleased with his design in the end was there's a lot of good cards in Guardian, Seeker, Survivor, Rogue, and Mystic that combo well with him. And I won't give all of them up, like, on this show, because a lot of them are going to be in Scarlet Keys, but, like, there's a bunch. I mean, Guardian has cards that can heal allies, so you can keep them around for longer. Rogue has, well, I'm not going to go too far into it. There's a lot of stuff.
But yeah, what's really exciting about him and what was exciting seeing him take form was just how much flexibility and how much it was like, oh, wait. This is what I love about this game is that there's so much you can dream about and so much that you can kind of think about for who this person is and who this person could be.
Yeah.
So.
Very true.
It's kind of cool that once you have your board set up, you've got a lot of decision making during your turn, that it's not just like, oh, I've got big stats, I'm just going to do things.
Right.
It's like, okay, if I exhaust these 2 people, I can do this test at a 7. But then I'll only be at a 3 for this next test. Maybe I want to exhaust only 1 and have a 5. Or maybe I exhaust these 2, but one of them's Bonnie, and I ready the first one, and then I can do him for the second. Like, there's so much, like, mix and matching of, like, who you're exhausting and when. And that's going to be, like, the high skill ceiling for, like, that's going to separate the good Charlie Kane players from the great Charlie Kane players.
Right.
You know. And yeah, someone in chat just mentioned the rogue mercenaries. All of the rogue characters who you have to pay every turn. I always loved them in Leo because Leo doesn't care if they go away, and he can like sneak them into play almost for free. But they're also pretty good in Charlie if you've got the money, because they're very cheap and they're really easy to just throw down on the table if you need someone that turn. And if you can't pay them, you can't pay them, but at least you had something, you know?
Yeah, it's also cool because this, like, I always thought of him as neutral, but I think it's cool because Charlie's interesting in, like, watching how people talk about his character in the past, because there'd be some Arkham players where they'd argue that he's probably in league with the bad people in Arkham, and, you know, he's shady. And others would be like, he's a sleazy politician, he's just a mercenary, he'll do whatever. And then others would be like, no, this story said that he, like, tries to protect the people. So everyone kind of projects their view onto Charlie compared to, I mean, that's true for a lot of Arkham investigators, but I think more so than a lot of them. So I think the neutral approach is cool, and this deck building, because you can kind of build them in all those ways if you choose to. You can make them as shady as you want to be, or you can make them just straight and narrow if you want to.
It's kind of like, in and of itself, it's kind of like, not to get political, but it's kind of like very politician-y to be able to fit whatever role, like, would make people happy at that moment, you know? I think being like a social chameleon is kind of a thing that politicians do, so it kind of makes sense.
I was just, of course, like, as soon as we finished and got everything, my first thing was jumping to Arkham DB to sort all allies.
Of course.
But yeah, like, I mean, there's almost 100. Well, I mean, there's a couple doubles. It's saying 95 allies, but there's some doubles in there. I think we can say at least 80. But I was looking at the Black Cat has 2 wild icons and also really helps you out on certain tests, making them -1 for the tablet and the Elder thing.
The Black Cat is legit.
That's a really good ally for Charlie.
Also, someone else briefly mentioned it in chat, but a lot of story asset allies that you earn during, like, certain campaigns tend to have a lot of icons, because I wanted to make sure that even if you didn't like their ability, they're still, like, valuable to have in your deck. Yeah, so there's a lot of them that have, like, wow, fantastic icons that if you're Charlie, you're like, give me, you know. Yeah, there's a few that come to mind immediately, but, like, I'll let everyone, you know, find those out.
Yeah.
Now the fights begin of who's gonna take Charlie for Iron Man.
Yeah. I mean, if we do Dunwich Iron Man, there's so many allies in that one. Like,
Yeah.
Charlie can take 4 sled dogs right off the bat.
yeah, and still have 2 more
And
allies.
still have 2 more allies.
Like,
Wow.
oh boy. Yeah. I'm really excited about that. What a deck building ability. And the just, like, choose 2 classes, 0 to 2. Like, my brain is
There's a lot of possibilities.
fried already.
Well, I'm glad to kick off this spoiler season the right way,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm very excited for. Hopefully, we're going to continue doing some more spoilers even before we do the article, but we'll see. We're definitely trying to do some coordination with that and make sure it's not just like, because I think another lesson that we learned from Edge of the Earth is we just kind of dumped all the spoilers in, like, 2 months, which was great for those 2 months, but also a lot. So I kind of want to spread them out a little bit more and kind of start a little bit earlier, but also, you know, not do, like, 10 spoilers a week or whatever we were doing back then, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, we do a show every 2 weeks, so if you just want to every 2 weeks show up, I mean, we can do this again. That's
I'm not going to show up every 2 weeks.
I mean, you were very welcome to when I said it, but yeah. Okay.
Only if you order us pizza.
Yeah, give me pizza.
Deal. Speaking of sushi and all you
Wait, what?
pizza, sushi, there's sushi pizza.
Yeah, I really
there's
want
sushi.
pizza. Speaking of sushi,
Speaking of sushi,
who are you?
Scott is the best at segues in this whole podcast. Like, he really is.
Are you?
established.
Are you?
Yeah. I too view every food as sushi.
Yeah.
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's chat a bit about Iron Man. Duke, this was your first one as well?
It was, yes.
How was your experience? We'll start with you first, and we'll move to Maxine. What was it like? What was your overall impression at the end of it?
Well, I will tell
And I
you.
guess the days moving up to it. I guess.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you. Actually, I did an unofficial Iron Man before, like several years ago, where I introduced one of my best friends to the game. And we played through all of Dunwich. He came out to visit me where I was living in Colorado at the time, and I was like, "Hey, I want to show you this card game. I think you'll like it." He was the person who introduced me to Arkham Horror Second Edition a long time ago, and so I was like, "He's gonna like this game." And he was like, "We're gonna play this whole campaign, right?" And I was like, "Yes, we're gonna do that. Yeah, that's what we're doing." And then, the next thing we knew, we'd been playing Dunwich for we didn't even try to play it quickly because he was learning the game. So we played it for 18 hours straight or something.
Oh, wow.
And I always describe that experience. I was like, I took 2 mental trauma at the end of that as a character and as a player. Because it just ate me up. This one, so I was a little bit prepared for okay, this is going to be, you got to get into the mode, get into the way of playing it. And everyone at my table will tell you I was pretty much dead to the world. We were in point of no return, and I was like, y'all, can we just maybe just die right here and then just skip to the please? I'll take the trauma. I'll take the trauma for all of us, please.
Yeah.
Can
I voluntarily die? Yeah.
So it was a lot, but also after I reached that point, and then everyone was like, "Duke, keep playing," and I was like, "Okay, fine." And I hit my second win, and there was just some magic in it. It was pretty beautiful. I will say though, I actually have not finished my full Iron Man because the janitor came in.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah, so we were playing in the the lounge area of my apartment complex, which is really nice. It was super swaggy. It was great.
It was great.
My wonderful, amazing girlfriend cooked this huge array of meals, and we had all these snacks laid out and everything. She made cookies and brownies, and it was amazing.
It was a
but
spread.
Sadly,
So good.
we got started a little late, and then also got kicked out at 11, which, to be fair, is exactly what would have happened in the game center. So, that was fine, but it kind of sucked because we were one scenario away from finishing.
When the custodian came in to kick you out, you should have just locked eyes with them and just put a third investigator deck on the table and then just scoot a chair out and tap the seat. No.
We were playing with 8 people.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah. 2 groups of 4.
Well, what's number 9 then, right?
Yeah, what's number 9? No, it's basically it was just kind of an unfortunate, I think we weren't making any noise really, but there was another party going on, outside on the deck, and
Sure.
I don't know. Anyway, it's fine. I still feel like I had the Iron Man experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
What's the difference between 7 and 8, right? It's the same. It's fine.
I mean, really, you're right. If you went the whole day playing, that is the Iron Man experience, is getting to the end of the day and being like, I never want to play this game again. And then you wake up the next day, you're like, so about that Arkham game.
I mean, with for what it's worth.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, I was just saying, it was I really did enjoy the way of playing where it was oh yeah, we're humming. We're trying to stay ahead of the clock. That was lovely. That was delicious.
I have never played Arkham that fast in my life. Ever. It was it was definitely a new experience for me. Yeah. The what was I gonna say? I'm no veteran to playing games for obscenely long periods of time. I've probably over 200 games of Twilight Imperium under my belt. Probably more than that, to be honest.
Wow. Ooh.
Yeah, there was a time where we played it every week in college, without fail. And as you know, Twilight Imperium is a kind of a long game. So marathoning a long game I'm like no stranger to that. But playing this game specifically, this quickly and for this long, I have never done before.
Sure.
And it was definitely an experience. But it was also like really cool to have like the camaraderie of everyone there, and to like, you know, share it with everyone online as well. It was very cool.
Yeah.
I even got the FFG Twitter account to tweet about it, which was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was
was
it was great. It was a great time, and the food was amazing, and the company was amazing. The only thing that I would do differently is I think I drove my group a little crazy with how little prep work I did. Like I did like no prep work. I didn't have my decks built until like the week before.
Sure. I mean,
And they were all like glaring at me.
I mean, I was that way too. I felt like I was lagging for my group too. They're like, "Come on, dude."
I feel like though it's I mean, at least for us, like slight adjustments to our Iron Man deck is like the day or two before.
oh, it's like the night.
but
It's
you
the
know,
night before.
we show each other.
But you guys talked about it you guys would have like entire podcasts about like, all right, this is what we're going to do during Iron Man, and I'm going to have this deck, and you're going to have this deck, and we're going to, you know, people would be like, oh, MJ, what are you playing? And I'd be like, Tommy, I think. I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. It to a certain extent, it's still kind of work for me. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to play.
Yeah.
Like...
So one of my questions was, what's it like to Iron Man / speedrun a game of your own creation? Because we've talked a lot about speedrunning, like you, me, and Sean.
Yeah.
In a general sense, but like this is your own.
Yeah.
game.
Well,
It was cool.
As a follow-up question to that, was there ever a moment where you were like, "Damn it, me! Why did I do this?"
Wait, like in what
Like
way?
when you're playing the scenario
Like I
and
made
just
it too
and,
hard,
or like
or-
you just run into a choice or a situation or something, and it's a combination of like the way your deck is and also the way the scenario is reacting to that.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
I do that all the time. Well, because here's the thing. I don't, and I've said this on the cast before, but it's like I don't often get to play
Right.
like the released material. I'm almost always only playtesting. So when I finally get the chance to go back and play a campaign, it's been years since I designed those cards. I barely even remember half of them. And I get to a point where I'm like, whoa, that card's tough. I made this? You know what I mean? And there were a couple times where, like, during Dark Side of the Moon, I got obliterated. There was one moment, so I was playing Tommy, and I don't know how it happened. There was a Byakuya at my location, and I got stuck with another enemy. I forget what it was. And then something happened and it raised my alarm level to 3. And I remember that was the moment that the skies darkened and Byakuya descended on me like a goddamn... It was ridiculous. It was just Byakuya after Byakuya after Byakuya, and I was stuck in one location for like the whole game. And at a certain point I was just like, just go. Just go. Just get out. Just go. Just leave me. Because I was blocking like like the moon lizard and like 2 other enemies, and I just sacrificed myself for the team. I was like, if I had I'll see you in hell, I would play it right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I definitely remember
That's such
being
a
like,
Tommy
wow,
thing,
these
though.
enemies are tough. But like it wasn't like, ugh, this is unfair. It was just like, wow, I forgot
Right.
all of these enemies existed, you know? Yeah. What was the other question? It was what was it like to speed run my own game?
Your own creation.
Yeah. I felt a lot like I've watched like videos before of like developers watching people speed run their games, and it felt a little bit like that because I don't think anyone like playtesters do, but I don't think anyone that on the design team goes quite that in. We just don't have the time to go quite that in depth with like the decision making elements and like the synergies of like, oh, if I run this card and you run this card and we're on this scenario, this interaction can happen. You know what I mean? But when you're prepping for an Iron Man as a player, you think of all those things. So there was a lot of like, okay, everyone's gonna bring copies of On the Hunt for the final scenario, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, huh? Why? Oh, that's right. Like, it took me a second, because,
totally,
like,
totally.
I hadn't even
I
thought
see.
of, like... Yeah, because I'm not thinking of the specific card counters that are silver bullets for... I'm just presenting problems
Right.
and solutions, and then letting the players discover the solutions to those problems on their own. And sometimes the solutions to those problems, like, stun me, because I did not think of them. But I love it. Like, I think that's great. I think that's, like, one of the strengths of the game. That it's like a playground, and you can do stuff like that. In a way, it's kind of like the card game version of an immersive sim,
Oh, totally.
where it's like, you know, I'm thinking of games like
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 classic Deus Ex
and yeah, classic Deus Ex and like
System Shock.
Stalker, System Shock, yeah, where it's like, hey, do you want to do this weird thing and kill the boss in this totally unintended way? Like, go for it. Like, that's awesome. And we definitely had a few of those moments, and it was cool.
I was actually able to bring 3 copies of On the Hunt because I was playing Zoe, and I drew Smite the Wicked, and that got an Narlatha Depth out of the deck. It was
That's
fantastic.
awesome. Yeah, we had a lot of cool like moments too, and like running gags, because you got to have running gags.
It's a requirement for
Like
Iron Man.
every time I played Solemn Vow on someone, I like took their hand and I was like, hey, look at me. I promise you, we're gonna make it out of this. We're gonna get it through this together. And I would just slide the card across the table, and they would be like, "Oh my god, please don't do this again," because it was like by the 12th time, it started getting really old. And like, I think at one point, this might have been when we finally went back and wrapped it up afterwards. But there was like a moment I passed someone a Solemn Vow. And they like gave me sass for it, and I was like, "Oh, fine, you're not getting it then." And then I like turned to like someone else, and I'm like, "Here you go, like I promise you." It was really funny. But yeah, very different experience, because I especially love to just like go through slowly and like ploddingly, and like read all the flavor text, read all the text on every location, on every act and agenda, like all that stuff. Not because I'm like patting myself on the back, like, I did a really good job. It's more just like, yeah, it's just like, for me, that's part of the
Yeah.
experience.
Well, that's the experience you're specifically
So
going
skipping
for.
as much as physically possible is like so different.
Yeah, for me, like Arkham is inextricably bound to like what's mechanically happening on the board and with your deck and with your hand, as well as the story that the game is telling you and the story that's actually unfolding through decisions you're making. So like missing the story text and the flavor text was weird. I'd never played Dream Eaters in that way without that context.
Yeah, same.
I mean, obviously we had the context, but I missed it. But I also did really enjoy the experience for what it was. It was really cool. And I am looking forward to doing more Iron Men.
Yeah, same. It was one really interesting thing was I was prepared to like have to change tactics on the fly based on like how the other group was doing, because we were doing like the 2 parallel tables. But every single time it worked out the way we planned, and we were like, all right, cool. So yeah, Black Cat knows the truth. Cool. Okay. Next scenario. We just like immediately skipped the interlude. And, like, it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I know there's a number of times, like, Nick, for the last couple of years, you've been our campaign guide person. Although Ian, you were entering the app this year, but Nick, you had like the plan in front of you, and you're like, okay, so intro 1, 4, 5, 7. It's all flavor text.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing occurs. Start the scenario. Like it was just all that beautiful story text. Just
It's not needed in Iron Man.
It's true.
Yeah,
But that's okay. It makes sense because Iron Man is like the you know, you've watched this cutscene.
Yeah,
12
exactly,
times now.
exactly.
Yeah.
yeah.
No one's playing the campaign for the first time. At least I hope not.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh God, please don't for your first time.
You know what?
Bad
Every
way to do
year,
your first time.
every year, there is someone in the Iron Man channel who's like, "Hey, this is my first time. Should I
No.
play Iron Man?"
At least not your first time playing the game.
I want that. I want to hear if anyone in the sound of my voice ever plays Iron Man, like find someone who's never played Arkham before, get them to just buy a starter deck
no.
and just watch Like, don't tell them what it is until you're, like, after the first scenario, and then they're getting ready to leave, and you're like, no. We're doing the whole thing. Like, sit back down. And I want the change in their face to be captured on video when they're like, oh, no, what? I have to sit here for 14 hours?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, no. No.
What a weird way to learn the game.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like, if I'm playing, a video game for the 18th time that I've beaten so many times, I'm trying to play through it really fast. Yeah, I'm going to skip all the cutscenes. Of
course.
Like, duh. Like, of course.
Well, it's a timed speed run, and the cutscenes are counted in the time.
Exactly.
For this game,
exactly.
right? Like, so you're just like, skip. Yep.
That's why there's certain games out there where the speed run will have an official save that starts after the opening cutscene.
Yeah.
That's unskippable.
I've also seen ones where, like, it's an unskippable cutscene, but it's really long.
Yeah.
So the way they get around it is they restart the game, because then it skips them to the end of the cutscene. Like, they just, like force quit. Elden
Ring
has, the speedruns for that. They'll force quit the game and restart it, like, 5 times.
I mean, isn't that basically Return to TCU? Like, you start the prologue and then you just go, okay, we all died, move on.
I mean,
Yeah.
Or you just pull tarot cards and then you're like, okay, next.
right.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I recognize that if you're playing the Return to, you've probably played through this prologue quite a few times. Yeah.
So did this experience of Iron Manning a campaign, is that going to change your view on campaigns at all, do you think?
Maybe. Well,
as far as design?
I think the one takeaway that I had was when I was watching the prep channel and I saw, like, the flow chart that someone made. I was like, here's a flow chart that I made for
that flow chart.
And I took that and my mind boggled, because obviously I knew all the web of interactions that could happen, but it was just like seeing it laid out like that. I was like, wow, that's amazing. So I actually showed that to people in the story group, like, hey, just so you have a taste of, like, how ridiculous like some of these campaigns can get. And one of them was like, is the Scarlet Keys this intricate? And I was like, oh, hun, like, you don't even know. Like, so yeah, I think to a certain extent it informs that, because it's like, I want that planning experience to be, not super convoluted, but as intricate as it can get for a card game.
Right.
I want there to be multiple viable paths, and I want them to be, really important decisions to make before we even start playing. And like with Carcosa, and we've seen the evolution of that. Like with Carcosa, it's like, oh, do we go doubt or conviction? And that's, largely
or the middle
one.
Yeah.
But with Dream Eaters, you have this monstrous flowchart. And with Edge of the Earth, I think when people start doing Iron Man for Edge of the Earth, it's going to be a big question of, like, how many scenarios do we play? And, like, do we go for the full, as many as physically possible, or do we just go for the 4, And Scarlet Keys, I think, is even more so, like, with regards to the choices of, like, what path are we going to take? That's going to be a big factor. Which, maybe makes Iron Man tougher to organize.
I mean, I'm already stressing. We're still a couple years out, but I'm already stressing for Edge of the Earth Iron Man just because of at least one. I think it's just the one. I can't remember now exactly, but one of them, it's random which version of it you get. Semi-random.
Yeah,
it's based on.
It's semi-random because it's based on who's alive.
And you don't always have control over. There's multiple instances in the campaign where it's just like, all right, a random one, boom. And so that part alone, I'm like, oh no, we're gonna have to plan literally for all 3 parts. Like, we're gonna have to have a plan for all 3 of them. Oh, yeah. So it'll be super fun, and that's one of the things too. Like, I'm excited for that because, like, Iron Man in general, by this point, and like where the player card pool is when we get to Iron Man of a campaign, it's usually like we have a couple of tense moments, but overall, like, we get done with it. I didn't do TCU, so I don't know how that one went. I heard it was long, But we get to the
That one was tense. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been our most tense one.
Oh
by
God,
far.
I'm sad I missed
So,
it because that's what I like the best. I like the moments where you're on a razor's edge, and you know, and one test could go either way, could make or break the scenario. And not that I didn't have fun, because of course I'm still sitting there with the other hosts, but then when we're like super like far ahead in a scenario, that's when I'm just kind of like, all right, cool. Like, yeah, this. That's not the Arkham that I was looking for, but hey, it's Arkham, so cool. So I'm kind of excited.
Iron Man on hard mode.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it after how the last
Okay.
few Iron Men have went.
Like,
let's pump the brakes and remember we're going into
Yeah.
Infinite. Like,
but Scott, every year we're like, oh, this one's going to be the hard one, and it's not.
Yeah.
So
But that's
I
the
don't
thing.
know.
I think there's multiple, like any speed run. There's different categories, right? So
Oh,
you
yeah.
could do like, any percent, no glitches or whatever. With Arkham, it's like, how many scenarios do you plan on playing in like Edge of the Earth, for example?
Right.
What ending are you trying to accomplish, and what side objectives are you trying to accomplish, and then what difficulty mode? So it's like with Innsmouth,
Sure.
are you doing the all flashbacks route, or are you doing the we don't care about any percentage of flashbacks route? Because those are two very different runs.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't discussed anything for Innsmouth yet, other than just possible investigators. So yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. There's a few different ways that we could totally go about it, and we could definitely make it harder on ourselves. That's not hard
Yeah.
to do. So
I was just going to say, like, yeah, you're at the point where you kind of get to make those decisions and add those stipulations because that's very much the game itself. Like, I have a yearly tradition where I play through a Zelda game with one of my friends. And, sometimes we are like, oh, I'm going to beat Ocarina of Time with 3 hearts, no shield because I can. Or
Because I can.
we're going to play Majora's Mask with a drinking game. You have to take like a shot after each boss or something like that.
Yeah.
Like,
Our original plan for Dream Eaters was one true ending run and one have it your way run. And we ended up just doing 2 true ending runs instead.
sure.
But like that gets more and more complex as the campaigns go on. When you get to Edge of the Earth, it's like it's not just like, all right, do we do this run or this run? It's like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
there's a lot of choices, and maybe it's just let's just play. Let's just sit down and play and just see what happens. Because Edge of the Earth is a lot, like you said, sometimes things just happen and you kind of have to roll with it. With Scarlet Keys, I would say it's a bit less random like that. And you can definitely like plan out what like route you're going to take through the story, but there's so many more routes. And
Interesting.
there's even like, I would say, how many endings? Like Duke, there's like
no.
4 main endings, not including the, rocks fall, everybody dies.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Maybe 3. But like there's a lot of different possibilities. So it's going to be really cool. I'm excited.
I mean, the Dream Eaters had essentially 30.
Yeah, you had an
mean,
ending matrix.
Yeah, but those endings were
'cause you
like a
have- you have
paragraph long
16.
each and kind of
Yeah. It's fair.
loosey-goosey because I knew there was going to be 16 of them in the epilogue. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
all right, how do I fit all of these endings without it being like 18 pages? And the way to do that was to have all of it just be like a few lines of dialogue that the Black Cat throws at you. You don't really get the full description. You just kind of get a sense of what happens. These are like actual, like full-fledged, story routes with achievements and everything.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know someone's going to comment and be like, there's only 16 epilogues. Yes, but it's whether you broke the laws of the cats. That's a yes-no.
It's very
So
important.
You can get all 16 of those,
There's also just
and then...
losing.
There
No,
are
I
2 kinds
actually
of
think
people in
that
this world.
is an ending. Yeah. But yeah.
Is
Don't
it?
let
No,
the
'cause
cats
it's just
kill
the-
you. Don't let the cats kill you. That's important.
Yeah, because it's just one... It's like, if the cats are blah, 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 read this as well.
I love that.
It's like you're dead.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
Any awesome highlights? For what decks did you play? Let's go with that for both of you.
So our first table was on our side was heavy blurst. So we had some people running blessed stuff, some people running cursed stuff. We had like Dexter running cursed stuff. I was playing Marie. And then my second deck, my really fun deck was Voltron, Becky, Tommy. is what I call it, which is just
Yeah.
get as much ammo and attachments on Becky as physically possible. Didn't really work out until the last scenario, until scenario 4. But during scenario 4, oh man, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I had like Sniper Becky like loaded up. It had like 12 ammo on it. It was so cool.
Yeah. Firing at +6, doing 4 damage.
It was,
Like,
it was gnarly.
Yeah.
It was gnarly. And it wasn't even like, at one point I was like, oh, this isn't even my final form. Like, yeah, but it was cool. Yeah, I enjoyed, it was interesting doing Bless and Curse tokens, because, like, some people at the table wanted to do separate bags just to speed things along. But I was like, if we're doing Bless and Curse, there's no way we're doing separate bags. Like, that just sounds like a nuisance. So we all had the same bag and shared it, and occasionally yelled at me when I put it on my lap.
That's better than our table, because whenever someone would drop a promise of power, it was like, okay, everyone add a curse to your separate chaos bags.
Adding it's
And we would all
fine. It's
grow.
removing it. Remembering to remove it was the
Yeah.
problem. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And for me,
we would yell it. We had 2 bags, and it was like, remove a bless.
let's remove.
Duke, who
I
did you
really
play?
I played a Duke deck. I know, really surprising. And I also played a Luke deck, which I picked because it rhymed with my Duke deck.
The old
Nice.
Duke and Luke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Duke and Luke.
Expert Iron Man prep there.
Yep.
When you were preparing, did someone turn to you and say, Duke, Luke'em?
Luke Duke'em. Should have done that. I'll make the Duke Luke'em deck now.
Oh, God.
I will say to you all, though, the entirety of that day is a blur to me. I can't tell you what really happened. I guess we won. I think. I mean, yeah.
I mean,
So,
honestly, like, the one thing that sticks out for me was the French toast casserole.
yeah.
So good. Oh, my God.
I think I spilled that on the Luke deck, actually.
Oh, no!
Yeah. It's fine.
It's as if you spilled it on the
So good.
Oh.
Also, like, so here's an issue. You know, like I was saying, like, my girlfriend cooked all this amazing food, and much of it was snacks, and the snacks are now sitting on my kitchen counter, and, you know, I can't resist cookies. So that's a problem. Thanks for that. Just been, like, hogging all the... I'm just, like, eating cookies and brownies every night. Pretty sure
bring them
Iron
into
Man
the
made me
office. I
gain, like,
want
5
some.
pounds.
I one of my favorite conversations of the whole week/weekend was talking to your girlfriend at the sushi experience that we had.
Oh, gosh.
And like we were discussing like Iron Man plans, and I was explaining to, or I was detailing our plan to your team. And then your girlfriend starts basically like giving me as much detail back, but it's all cooking. Like
Yeah.
she's done so
Yeah.
much prep,
So much
Like,
prep for the
menu-
cooking. Like,
like menu prepping, and here I am
It's
with all
amazing.
my and then at that point I realized, I turned to Sean and Ian. I think I'm like, guys, what are we doing for food?
yeah,
We
yeah.
hadn't talked about it once
So
in all our
funny.
preparation.
It's so funny. And like we have the chat, like we've been prepping for months, and everyone's like, all right, so I think I'm gonna run this card in this deck, and like,
Yeah.
what are you running for your deck? Oh, I'm running this, and Caitlin's like, you know, gathering all like the food info, and like, okay, so I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off with this meal, and then I'm gonna make Baked City, and it's like. And everyone's like, okay, but what investigator are you playing?
Zoe, obviously, because she's a chef. Anyways, back to the lunch menu. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was so
Yeah.
good. And the sushi was really good. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Our meals were supplied by Justin, so us 4 adult men had to rely on a 5th person to take care of that for us. Like, none of us were capable, apparently.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about meals until Justin was like, I just put pizzas in the oven. I was like, oh yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's
need to eat.
basically how I operate on a daily basis. If people don't remind me to eat, like, it doesn't happen.
Well, I guess, and for me, like, previous Iron Mans have all been at the centers, so I, just like, okay,
Yeah,
we can take
we'd
a quick
have to
5 break
think
here
about
and run and get food. Yeah. So,
But yeah, it was great. And despite the fact that we got kicked out a bit early, the location was fantastic.
sure.
We had the
Yeah.
whole kind of lobby or lounge, not lobby, to ourselves, and it was really nice. It had its own little like, kitchenette sort of setup. So, and there was like a pool table and pinball machines and stuff that we're obviously not going to use because we're in the middle of Iron Man. But it's just kind of.
There was that one very drunk girl who walked through and was like, "Is this D&D?"
That was funny.
That was
Is this D&D?
No.
No.
But close-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
close-ish.
Swing and a miss, but you did swing, so...
Yeah.
Are you going to Iron Man again?
I have no idea. I mean,
Oh, I definitely will.
Yeah.
probably.
Nice. So you're saying there's a chance.
We'll see. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. It's not like, oh, I don't know if I would do that again. It's just like, it just kind of happened to be at the right time, and it worked out really well with like my location and everything and all that stuff. But I'm not going to necessarily like commit to it.
Fair enough.
But it was a lot of fun. And if you play Arkham like on the reg, I would definitely say try it. It's an experience.
Yeah.
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 It's an experience. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Maxine, I must also say your bravery astounds when we were doing the drawing of the weaknesses, because you said flat out that you are accepting your fate no matter what you get on the first weakness. So
The way I kind of viewed it in my head, I was like, no matter what happens, this is just the consequences of my own actions. So just hit me. And like, I just figured, it'd be kind of funny for the people watching if I was just like, and what's great is the rest of my team who was sitting around me were like, what? No! Like, what are you doing? It was really funny.
I don't remember what yours was, but I remember one of them were like, ooh.
It ended up being pretty light for me.
Okay.
I think I had hypochondria for Tommy, and
Oh.
I don't even remember. Oh, narcolepsy was the other one, which is like one of my favorite weaknesses in the game. So
Yeah.
I'm always happy to draw narcolepsy.
Narcolepsy's great.
Yeah.
And there's some people coming in chat like, what? People draw multiple weaknesses? For Iron Man, one of the things we decided was it'd be fun to allow people to redraw the weakness, but if you redraw it, you have to take the second one. Just because Iron Man is one day, and if you just get that one weakness that demolishes your deck from the beginning, like that's just going to be maybe a bad day, a bad experience. So you have that one shot to undo it. But there was a couple people who rejected their fate, and they got a worse one.
Oh yeah.
I forget who it was, but someone who was playing Zoe rejected something, and then they got dendromorphosis. And like they were the killer, and like it was me, Sean, and Ian, and we're just like all like, oh no, because you're locked into that second one. Yeah.
Ouch.
It was. Yeah.
Ooh.
Why don't we slip into some tentacle?
Oh boy. Oh boy.
What are we slipping into?
Yeah. Or what's slipping into us? Who knows?
Yeah. Let's stop talking about Arkham the Horror, the card game. And I'm sorry, I had to.
Maxine, what's been grabbing you lately outside of Arkham?
Elden Ring. And then
Fair.
Elden Ring. And on the side, I've been doing a little bit of Elden Ring.
It's nice to break it up.
So actually, to be fair, I've been playing a few things. So obviously Elden Ring, because I love all of FromSoft's games. And Elden Ring is like, oh my god. I think it blows...
Actually, don't you mean Elden the Ring?
I think it... Elden the Ring. I think it blows all of their other games out of the water, even. Like, maybe not Bloodborne for aesthetics and story. Bloodborne definitely has my favorite, like, style. But in terms of gameplay, oh my goodness, it is ridiculous. Like, I've been playing for, like, 110 hours, and I don't think I've seen, like, half of what the game has to offer. It's ludicrous. The game is huge. I don't know how it was made. I used to think of Witcher 3 when I thought of games like that are like, oh my god, how was this game even made? This one is just it's ridiculous. I love it. But I've also been playing Destiny's latest expansion came out around the same time, a little bit beforehand, and I played a lot of that. And actually tomorrow morning I'm doing the new raid. So
Ooh.
that's going to be awesome. We're doing a blind run of the new raid. So that's going to be really fun. I am the lowest light level. So they're going to carry me through the raid probably. But it's okay because I've got Dead Man's Tale. I'm just going to stay really far in the back and just shoot things from afar. And then I've also been playing a lot of, just like random roguelites. There's a lot of roguelites these days, you know? Like a bunch of us are addicted to Vampire Survivors.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nick knows. It's kind of, I went on a long rant about it, about how like Elden Ring is this amazing like gourmet meal like created by the greatest chefs right in the industry, and it melts in your mouth and it's so good, and it's just like there's so many flavors, and it's just an incredible experience. And Vampire Survivors is a bag of potato chips, right? And it's like the two experiences are so completely different. Like one was lovingly crafted over many years by this like expert team, and the other is like just like a 16-bit shoot 'em up. But I can't stop eating the potato chips. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that's how I feel about it. It's like this one's clearly higher quality, but also I can't stop playing it. Why can't I stop playing it? And then recently I found a demo for a game called 10 Minutes Till Dawn, which is basically Vampire Survivors with a gun. And it's even better because it's the same kind of gameplay, the same like core gameplay loop, but it actually feels like your skill like matters a lot more. And because you have to like aim and shoot, it's not just like walk around and things happen. But it still has that same like consistent upgrading and like things getting harder as you're getting more powerful, and it just feels really good. And then you die, and then you do it all over again, and it's just good. I just like it. Oh, and I've been writing a lot too.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
About what?
I've been writing a few things. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, just a couple things. Well, so there's that short story, and then also,
Right.
I haven't really done a lot with it, like very recently, but I've been still working on the sequel to The Key and the Crescent, which if you haven't read it yet, you can find it on my website, bewaretheblackcat.com. But the sequel is coming along. I'm about 14 chapters in, which is about a little over a fourth of the way through, and hopefully won't do the thing I always do and just delete it all and start over. But it might. We'll see.
You know who used to do that?
You?
No, not me.
No? Okay.
No, I put way too much value in all of the stupid dribble that I've
Yeah,
ever
you
written.
actually finish your projects, unlike me.
But no, Tolkien wrote the Lord of the Rings like that. He would write until he got stuck.
Right.
And then his way of getting unstuck was to go back to the beginning and rewrite everything.
I mean, that's basically how I wrote The Key and the Crescent. Yeah. Like multiple
And
times.
that's
So you're basically told.
yeah, that's sort of how. Yeah,
Were you saying, Duke?
I was saying actually that's kind of how I wrote my novel too. I don't have a published novel, but I'm working on getting it published, and
Nice.
Nice.
I think I wrote that thing 5 times, and each time it got better and closer to what I wanted it to be.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of just editing in general.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that's a pretty standard process. But, like, I have 3 versions of The Key and the Crescent on my desk that I will always, like, keep with me. One is, like, a tiny sliver of a book, because it's not even the full book. It's just, like, everything I wrote for 1 year of NaNoWriMo. And it's not even called The Key and the Crescent. It's just called Poppy and the Black Cat. And then I have another one that's called The Key and the Crescent. But if you read it, it would barely resemble the book that I ended up actually finishing. Right. And then I have the final version. And to me, it's like a nice, when I look at it, it's like a nice representation of how, like, when I look at unfinished products or unfinished books that I'm writing, it's like a reminder that I can finish it. Like, I can get to the end. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which year did you do NaNoWriMo?
The first one I did was 2018, I think.
Okay.
Wait, was it 18 or 17? I don't remember. Honestly, COVID destroyed my sense of time. I think it was 18. Yeah. It was 2018. And then
Is that the one the three of us did together?
I think so.
Okay.
It was the first one I ever did.
Is it the one where I did a haiku a week to support you guys?
No, I think that was 2019.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I don't know. In any event, I did one, and then I sat on that story for a full year, didn't do anything with it, didn't touch it. And then I did NaNoWriMo again the year after. And that's when I wrote, like, the majority of the story. And then I did what they call Camp NaNoWriMo, which is in the summer. And that's when I finished it. And then for NaNoWriMo the year after that, so like another 6 months later, I basically rewrote like half of the story. Then I went into like full editing mode and hired actual editors to look at it. So, but it was cool because like there were so many aspects of the story that didn't make any sense until the rewrites, you know?
Oh, totally.
Yeah, that's
like
definitely how
the
it
title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like I remember when I was. Sorry, we're now talking about our novels.
That's okay.
Not?
We're in technical time.
That's technical time, man.
Yeah.
Just go. Yeah.
Well, like I remember I was writing my novel back in 2010. It's kind of a Twin Peaks creepy procedural that's also like a little Silent Hill-esque about a man looking for his wife. And I really liked the prose I was writing, and I really thought I was writing pretty stuff, but it felt like pulling teeth to be writing it when I was writing it. And so like the writing slowed to a crawl, and I was teaching English over in Mongolia in 2012. And I'd reached like a point where I just couldn't, I was like, where am I going to go with this book? And then I signed up for NaNoWriMo that year and was like, okay, screw it. I'm going to write the entire thing in a different tense and just write it. And it doesn't have to be good. I'm just going to write what I think is true, I guess, right? And so I wrote a 50,000 words of a novel, and I kind of wrapped it up hastily at the end. But the whole time I was writing it, I was understanding more of what I was trying to say and more of what I was wanting to do. And so like, yeah, I have that experience too, where I have that version of the novel that's like, this is trash. No one gets to read this except for me. And I'm not even going to read it because it's not that good. But then like, once I did that, it was like something clicked, and suddenly I went back and it was like, oh, the story makes sense. The characters make sense. What I'm trying to do makes sense.
Yeah.
And it kind of fell into place. So NaNoWriMo is really good for that. Like if you need to kick yourself just to move on, it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, same.
Yeah, there's no feeling quite like writing a story and getting to like the 70% mark and then having this great idea and going like, oh, okay, I need to go back and seed that. And then you go back and you're like, wait a minute, like I kind of already did, but I didn't have that idea back then. And like, there's no really way to like, nothing really compares to that, to just creating a story from scratch, from whole, and like just that process, you know what I mean? Like, it's so rewarding to get on the other side of it and look back and be like, yeah, fuck, I wrote this. My problem is that when I'm done, like 3 months after I self-publish it, I'm like, it's garbage. You should still read it because I put a lot of work into it. But
I would like you to read
so
this
much
garbage.
better than
Please
that
read
now.
my garbage.
Yeah.
Could you read my garbage?
I'm like, but I'm better than that now. Like, I mean, I write better than I did 3 months ago, which is of course a lie. Like, I mean, but you know what I mean?
That's just the creative process.
Exactly.
That's the creative process for anyone working in any like artistic medium. When I go back and I like look at the story text from like Dunwich or the, God forbid, the core set, I'm like, wow, this is not as good prose writing as what I do now.
Right.
It's certainly shorter. But like, I mean, just, I don't know. And like card design too, like, I've grown a lot as a designer and as a writer. And
Right.
I think but also like, I'm the same way. I look at even the most recent stuff and I'm like, whew, I'm a hack. I hope people like this.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
But yeah,
Actually,
like going
all that-
back real quick to like the process, like what you said, it reminded me a lot of a quote that I had heard that writing a novel is like, I'm gonna butcher the quote because I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it's like writing a novel is like skydiving and building your parachute on the way down. Because like you don't always have a plan, you just know you have a vision for a story. And you have some characters in your head, and kind of their personality, and their goals and their motivations, and kind of the aesthetics of the story and how you want it to play out. But in terms of like seeding ideas and themes and like hitting all those notes, that doesn't happen till later. Very often you have to like go back and seed those ideas and like rewrite entire segments to include a character who didn't exist before, or to omit a character who existed before who doesn't need to, and like do all these big sweeping changes. And so rewriting is like essential to that process.
Yeah, like so much of good writing is revision.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a book by Anne Lamott called Bird by Bird, where she has a chapter just called Shitty First Drafts. And it's just about that. You're always going to write a shitty first draft. Everyone does it, except for people that we're all jealous of and we hate. They're just blessed somehow.
Yeah.
But
Or they've
you're
just
gonna
been
write a
writing
shitty
for
first
so
draft.
long that like they can just churn
Yeah.
out a first draft. Like it just like comes out like a fax,
Like Stephen
But
King.
there's also the other.
like Stephen King.
She has another chapter though called K-fucked, where she talks about the radio station called K-fucked. It's just in your head. It's like, you're not good enough. You're never going to be good. You're never
interesting.
going to do well. That like you just have to turn off. So like I feel like that's so part of the process. It's like turning off the voices that say what you're doing isn't good enough, and it has to be perfect the first time through, and neither of those things are true.
Yeah. Sometimes it just takes like one good line. Like I remember the first chapter that I wrote for Dark Drifters, back before it wasn't even gonna be a novel, it was just like a character short that I was writing. There was one line that stuck out to me. I was like, okay, all right, this is a quality line. I like this one line right here. And that one thing like propelled me into writing the rest of the novel, like literally.
Nice.
So sometimes it's not just like it's not just tuning out the bad channel, but also tuning into like the right channel, where there's a part of your brain that's like, yo, did a good job here. This part right here was good. Do more of this. And I think there was a lot of that in Scarlet Keys too. Like,
Oh, sure.
Duke can tell you there were a few times where I'm like, I just like burst into the group chat. I'm like, Duke, I thought of a thing. Check this shit out.
Yeah, it's like being open to those moments and being like,
Yeah.
oh wow, we found the thing, but we didn't find it right away. Like
Right.
it's kind of just following the joy, following the thing that makes you excited, following the thing that draws you forward.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, definitely. This got a little philosophical, but I like it.
That's tentacle time.
But to answer the question, I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring.
Only a true author can loop that all the way back.
Right.
That's skill.
Amazing. Did I mention Inscription on this podcast?
I don't.
I might have
I
the
don't- That
was
last
the
time
other
I was
one,
on,
yeah.
but if I didn't, you should play Inscription. That's all I'm gonna say. Just play it. Just
So good.
go download it. Just play it.
Yeah, play it now. Or
I know
else.
there's people out there who like every time I start mentioning something, they're like, "Oh God, stop recommending things for me. Now I have to go buy it." But I guarantee you will love Inscription if you like Arkham Horror,
It
the
is
card
worth
game.
Yeah, so good.
Inscription. That's a Steam game. Is it indie?
It is. It is on Steam. I think it's also on Switch, actually. It is an indie title. It's basically it's basically a roguelite card game, almost kind of like in the vein of Slay the Spire, but with totally different mechanics, and it's very creepy. It's swept awards at GDC, which it deserved. But here's the thing about Inscription, without spoiling anything. Every time you think you know what Inscription is, it completely redefines itself. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh my god, this looks so creepy.
It's extremely cool. I would say it's not actually like scary, like there's no jump scares or anything like that, but it's extremely creepy. But more than that, it's such a cool meta experience that like you go into it and you're like, okay, I think I'm finally starting to understand what this game is about. What? That exact sentence happened to me like 8 times.
The less you can read about it, the better.
Yeah,
it's definitely
agreed.
worth experiencing.
I'm just looking at the pictures in the Steam thing. You know, though, I think I've admitted this before on the podcast. For some reason, I don't like horror in general, but with video games, like it doesn't even have to be horror. It can be like playing Morrowind, Elder Scrolls, and it's nighttime, and I'm like, no, it's too dark. Gotta sleep till day. Like that. So like looking at these images, and it's like there's dark corners and there's shadows. I'm like, oh, it's making me nervous already.
Oh, Scott.
I'm such a wuss. Like, yeah.
That's okay. But yeah, there is a free demo. Someone mentioned that in chat. I want to call attention to. There's a free demo, so just download it.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, there it is. Yep. Click.
Yeah.
Yes. Download.
Yay!
There we go. Done.
I did it. I recommended a thing I like.
I did a thing in university when I was like 20, and when Doom came out for the Xbox, like the remake of Doom or something.
2016. Yeah.
No,
2016 or 2012.
No. This is like 2004,
Oh,
2005.
Doom 3, that one.
Yeah, Doom 3.
Yeah, Doom 3.
So I bought that, and I was, poor college student, and I actually broke my glasses, and I was like, I had to wait a couple days. Like that's back when you couldn't get like glasses like in an hour. So I went and got glasses. So I had to live without glasses for 2 days, which is fine. I'm just kind of blurry. I'm okay. But in order to play a video game, I had to like sit up against the TV, and so I was playing Doom 3 until 2 a.m. And I hadn't realized like I was living in a condo and all my roommates had gone to bed and like turned off all the lights. So I turned off the TV, pitch black, no glasses, can't see, and I've just been playing Doom 3 with demons popping out. I'm like,
oh god.
Oh. And since then, I can't handle dark video games. I don't know what's.
I mean, I used to play Silent Hill with my brother when I was like 11 in the basement in the dark. So like I've basically become immune to. Well, no, that's not true. I get scared. I just love it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's where I am.
The scarier, the better. Like PT blew my mind. I loved that experience. And then like, recently, the only game I played that had like a scary segment that really got to me was the one segment in Resident Evil Village, where you go into like the little dollhouse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Actually, that reminds me. One other game that I've been playing a lot of is The Outer Wilds. I've been playing the DLC for it.
Okay, can you sell me on that game? Because people keep recommending it to me, but I have no idea what it is.
It's basically like you're in a national park, but the national park is a solar system. And so like you can go and die in really dumb, awful, funny, scary ways by just going out into nature, and nature is deadly and you don't understand the rules of any world that you're on until like it's too late. But then you go back and then you like have to learn more about what's going on. It's not like high intensity. It's more like, basically if you love exploring, which is my primary motivator in a lot of games, I see a mountain peak and I want to climb to the top of it just because I can.
Yeah.
Just so I can.
So is it?
But like, I'll give you. Oh, go ahead.
Is it kind of like No Man's Sky?
It's a little bit like that, but I feel like there's a little bit more of a. It's so much easier to die than in No Man's Sky,
so
and I say that I know
survival.
you can die a lot. A little bit, but like it's more like you're kind of learning about the natural world around you as you're exploring it. So, like for instance, I will tell you one thing: if you go to this weird knotted broken planet that's just a bunch of tangles of roots. You can actually go inside of these like hollow roots that go infinitely inward, and you see these beautiful lights in these roots. And if you just follow the lights, maybe you'll be fine, or maybe something really terrible happens. And I don't want to say beyond that, but it's that kind of game where like you don't understand until it's too late.
That's cool. I like that.
I've heard it's like, and I haven't played it, but the few people I've talked to have said it's kind of like a mix of Borderlands and like Fallout 3 / New Vegas. Where like there's lots of exploration, it's first person, it's like RPG-ish.
I think you're thinking of the Outer Worlds.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Outer Wilds, which is different. But I also love the Outer Worlds. I've been playing a lot of that too.
Yeah, that was part of the thing that confused me. Was I got a lot of reviews on the Outer Worlds, and then the Outer Wilds, and I was like, "Is that the same game? No, it's a different game. What is this? I'm so confused."
Yeah, and they came out very close to relatively close to one another. Which was didn't help the fact that
like within the same year, I think.
Yeah, that they're like 2 letters different.
Anyway, I'll definitely check it out.
Outer Wilds. I have seen this one. Again, there's darkness in it, so it's scary. Can't play it.
It's very Actually, that's what brought it to mind, is that I was playing through some of the DLC, and there's some areas in there that are like really dark, and I was actually kind of scared, even though it's not a scary game.
Sure.
But
anything can be scary if you're scared of it.
Fair. Yeah.
I used to be scared of the water level from Mario 64.
Oh, yeah.
Because it had that giant fucking eel. It was terrifying. I don't like it.
Oh, yeah.
No, thank you.
Oh, I thought you meant the level of the water, where the water goes up and down depending when you hit the switches. Like you were scared.
Oh, that always terrified me too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nick, what's been grabbing you?
Besides
your daughter, I guess.
besides the new addition to my the what would it be 20% increase in the size of our family. Besides that, which has been commanding a lot of time, haven't had a lot of time to do much gaming because when you got a newborn, it's like, well, I guess I'll just watch stuff. So my wife and I, we watched most of Moon Knight. We still have the finale to get to. It's entertaining. It's not top of my list, but it was fun. And again, we still have the finale. But I actually rewatched Chernobyl on HBO Max, which phenomenal television drama, but also incredibly depressing. It's right up my alley. Because it's got.
I love that show, by the way.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's like the who's who of British television actors is in that show. So a lot of phenomenal talent. And the pacing of the show is just so good. And it's only 5 episodes or 6 episodes, but you're going to want to probably this is my second time watching it. And I skipped most of the second to last episode just because that's too depressing for me. Some of the stuff they get there, but the fact that all of it, most of this stuff actually happened, it's a dramatization of real events, and that's what just kind of makes it hit so much harder. But anyway, I got 2 actually. People are like, "Oh, depressing TV, maybe not up your alley," but I got 2 very exciting things to announce, and then I'll be done with Tentacle Time. One is that our Dungeons and Dragons stream, The Skies of Artifice, will be resuming on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. That is Tuesday the 24th. And the 2 people who cheered are the two of the players. So these 2 people,
2 players. That's it.
That's it. It's everybody.
Everyone else is cut. Sorry.
Sisters, we've got once again.
We've got 6 great players, and so if you like me, you like Max, you like Ian, and anyone else, we've been doing it for a while, you know who's playing, but super excited to get back to that. It's D&D, and I've been listening to a lot of D&D audiobooks and getting kind of back in that headspace to run again, so I'm really excited. And if you like RPGs, my last announcement is that the Astral Tides RPG that I've kind of teased a little bit here and there, the PDF is now available on DriveThruRPG and on my website, nicholascorey.com. Totally self-published RPG, but you should check it out. I would really encourage it. It's the Golden Age of Piracy meets space opera. and I've been working on it for a long time, and I'm so glad that it is finally available. And there will be new stuff coming out for it in the coming weeks as well.
It's good. Check it out.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Chaos Fan in chat is asking if I have any D&D audiobooks I can recommend. Yeah, I'll say that in chat. I won't take up more of the episode. But yeah, I'll let you know in chat, Chaos Fan. But yeah, that's me, Astral Tides RPG and D&D.
Ian.
I also haven't had a ton of time because I felt like I spent this past week recovering from Iron Man and all the stuff we did. And the main thing is I've just been wanting to play more of the games we play. Like, I'll just be sitting there, like, looking up Destiny decks or wanting to play Netrunner again or Lord of the Rings TCG. So, yeah, those have been running through my mind. Other than that, I've been watching the brand new Star Trek show. Surprise, surprise. I know everyone's shocked that I'm watching Star Trek, but...
Wait, you like Star Trek?
Yeah, I know.
Weird.
But there's been a lot of new Star Trek shows recently. They just came out with a new one, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is another kind of prequel show that's taking place like before the Star Trek the original series with Captain Kirk and Spock and all those, which is funny because originally I was like, when they started doing all these new Trek shows, I was like, I don't want any more prequels because sometimes I really hate prequels, like you're stuck in having to align to canon, and I just want new stuff. But basically, like in the run of Star Trek Discovery, they had introduced some characters and everyone kind of fell in love with them and was like, okay, we want a prequel about them, and that's what Star Trek Strange New World is. But this is definitely already, after 3 episodes, my favorite of the new Trek shows. I think even a lot of people who kind of bounced off Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard will probably like this one. And although I do happen to like Discovery and Picard, this is easily my favorite already. And one of the interesting things, even for people who aren't into Trek, is that one of the things they did with this one is, like, TV pretty much, for the most part, is all about, like, these big serialized season arcs. Like, almost any big show you can think of, that's kind of the format TV follows these days. But, you know, when Trek was on the air back in, let's say, the 80s and 90s for most of the show, and of course 60s for the original show, it was more episodic, where it's like, you get the story, there's a problem that happens, they resolve it, okay, next week it's going to be a totally different thing. And so this Star Trek Strange New Worlds is kind of going more back to that episodic format. And it kind of reminded me how much I missed that format, actually. Like, I appreciate serialized story arcs, and my favorite Star Trek show is Deep Space Nine, which was the first to really explore those. But I don't think every TV show on Earth needs to do that. Like, I think there's something to be said for... Any people in chat are mentioning, like, yeah, the Monster of the Week format or X-Files, that I think there's still a place on TV for those, and there's things that you can do with that format that you can't do. And sometimes I almost feel like writers today are too caught up in, like, okay, well, we gotta leave a cliffhanger for next week, or build up the story, the big season story arc, and then each season the stakes have to be higher and higher each time because we did, like, the end of this planet, so next week the next season we gotta do end of the galaxy or end of the universe, and it's just the stakes keep raising. But I don't know, there's something to be said for just, like, we're just gonna have a problem in this episode and we're gonna figure out how to resolve it, and there's just, like, a tightness to that storytelling that I like, and feels very Trek and kind of hearkening back to those days.
Awesome. I'll keep mine super short. Sean and I, while I was there for Iron Man, we got to play a bunch of Star Wars CCG, which was super fun. We played 4 games. And it's a very complicated game, as I'm sure we've discussed on Discord and on the cast before. And I had the rule book printed out and spiral bound, and it was like 200 pages. And Ian, you said it felt like a course reader for the game.
Yes.
And then just during it was our third game, And like we had gone to this book like 8 times because there's so many rules things, and we started referring to like, check the Bible. And I just took this picture of Sean just middle of the game, like flipping through this enormous book that is just all text. Like there is not very many pictures in this thing. And at one point it's like, we're looking up something about Battle Destiny. Mechanic in the game, not important. But it said something along the lines of, Battle Destiny is drawing Battle Destiny is a relatively simple game mechanic or something like that. And then it's 3 more pages explaining all the different caveats of Battle Destiny. And the fact that it just started off with, it's relatively simple. So yeah.
To be honest, like that's older games are just like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can list a bunch of games that are really similar to that, where it's like, oh my god, like how did we ever play this? And I think it's just a testament to how much the hobby market has expanded. And like
it was a Wild West back then, right? Like it was.
Yeah.
And like gaming has become so big compared to in those days that there's a big drive to like hit larger and larger and larger audiences and like create rules that are more easy to understand and whatnot, which is always good. Obviously, I'm not like, oh, I miss the days where things were convoluted and sucked, but like there was a weird magic to the complexity of some games, you know.
Psychopaths benching in chat too. It's like big Vital Lacerda energy. Just play a card and take an action. My ass. Right? Like I love. He is my second favorite board game designer. I don't think I'm familiar. He made Venus, On Mars, The Gallerist. They like I will gladly play a game with you, but it's going to take us an hour and a half to learn it. And then our first game will probably be like 3 hours. Like it's.
I've told you my Twilight.
I know. I'm just
resume.
like it's just Vital. His games are incredibly complicated, but just oh my god, they're so amazingly designed. But it's
I used to play a role playing game called Millennium's End. To give you a hint of how.
Of course,
old.
you played Millennium's End.
Have you played Millennium's End?
I haven't played it, but I've read about it.
Oh my god. Okay, so to give you like a clue as to how old this game is set in the future of the year 2000. Right?
Oh yes.
So this is an older game. It was a hyper realistic RPG where you played as like a secret agent doing secret agent things, but it was so realistic that there were gameplay mechanics like, okay, if you get shot with a gun, or if you shoot someone with a gun, here's what you do. You take a clear plastic overlay that has a circle, and you match it with a piece of art that shows the pose of the character that you're shooting. Like, are they kneeling? Are they lying down? Are they standing? Are they prone? Are they running? And you put the overlay, and there's different overlays for different weapon types. And you put that over, and then you roll a percentile dice to see where you hit on their body. And then, once you've determined what part of their body you struck, you roll on several other tables to determine what kind of wound you dealt. And they take different kinds of trauma, and it's ridiculous. Like, it's ludicrous, but also, like, really cool in that, like, sense of, like, this just would never happen in these days. You know what I mean? In these days, you have hit points or bust, you know? Like, but it was very cool. Yeah, it just reminded me of that. You just, like, gave me a flashback to, like, my middle school days.
My favorite little tidbit about Star Wars CCG, it was the only card game to, for a brief time, outsell Magic the Gathering.
Nice.
There was like a 3-month window where Star Wars was the more popular game by sales than Magic. So,
do you remember which set it was?
I think it was Hoth or
really?
Cloud City.
I thought it would have been later.
It wasn't Dagobah. I know because Dagobah was a big slump for them. Because
I was gonna guess like Endor Death Star 2.
No, it was earlier on. I'm pretty sure. It might. Oh, was it Jabba's Palace? I forget.
Hoth and yeah.
Oh, great game.
I remember they released a 2-player starter set with Hoth, and that was how I got
Yeah,
into
I
it.
had that one.
And those were all shitty cards.
Well, the thing is, their rarity, the way they did rarity was just the stupidest thing, because you had rares 1, 2, and 3, uncommons
Yeah.
1 and 2, and then commons 1, 2, 3 or something, and it was just like the stupidest thing. And so you would have these starter packs with starter decks, and it was just random cards. So like 1 in 100 kids would get a Darth Vader or a Luke, and everyone else got like, you know, the backup for Rogue 6 pilot, right? Like that was
The worst thing was like opening a pack of Premiere and your rare is some droid that they zoomed in and cropped out of a shot. And it's like, what the what is this? Where's my Luke? Where's my Obi-Wan? Why do I have DS387 or whatever the hell? Like, ugh.
and like he's uncommon and the ship is rare or something. Like just
Seems
like
so
8 copies of
stupid.
him.
It was the hardest card game I've ever collected.
Yeah.
That was the challenge, was collecting that game.
It was terrible. They fixed it later on, but anyways, it was still. But also, speaking of Magic, I downloaded Magic Spellslingers, which is like the new Magic digital game for phones, like specifically for phones. It's not out in the US yet. It's being tested in Canada, the UK, and Australia, New Zealand, I think. If you like Hearthstone and want a shitty Magic ripoff of Hearthstone, download it. But it's worse than Hearthstone.
Wow, glowing review.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm
and, like-
just selling
like-
hard.
I'm not, and I'm being quite honest for anyone who's out there like, oh, I'm really excited for this. It's not great.
Well, let me ask you this: do you like Hearthstone?
I used to play competitive Hearthstone, like
Okay.
competing to.
I actually just re-downloaded it the other day.
Yeah, I stopped when Secret Mage was like the big meta deck, and the Warlock where it was like the 9/9 defending guy, and then you would like eat it.
Yeah,
and then it would
I loved
split.
that deck.
So that was the meta that I hit Legend and everything like that, and then
I loved
and then
that
I just
deck so
fell off of it. Like I really liked Hearthstone, and I ran out of time. I had kids,
Okay.
whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
This game is absolute shit though. So, like it's I don't know, man. Even the interface, the graphics, I'm just like, wow, this is just bad Hearthstone, and then they painted Magic on it, which is unfortunate. But yeah, that's my opinion of it. But I don't know, maybe it'll get better. This is like beta still, or pre-release still. So yeah, like it's Hearthstone, but you can only have 5 things on the board. But you can replace your things. That's one thing. Like you can deploy a unit over another unit and it goes away. Whereas in Hearthstone, if you filled your board, you're stuck until something dies.
Right.
You can voluntarily
but
kick something off. So
interesting.
yeah,
That reminds me of a game called Inscription that people should be playing.
yeah. Is Inscription on iPhone?
No,
Oh, damn it.
I don't think so.
All right.
Not yet. I say that, but I don't believe it. I don't know anything about their development plan.
Fair
You
enough.
can get it on Steam, though.
Yeah, I already downloaded the demo while we were talking.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap us up here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Maxine and Duke, it's been a pleasure again. Thanks so much for coming on, and thank you for the
Yes.
preview.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Like I said, I get just as much of a kick out of showing off the new cards as you do seeing them. So I'm excited to show more.
Excellent.
Same. It's really exciting to see y'all's reactions, and I'm so excited to see what the community comes up with.
Yeah.
I
Chat
legitimately-
was on fire.
Were there?
Yeah,
Oh,
it was just like messages screaming. It was like the fastest I've seen it
Nice.
move. Yeah.
I legit think the Scarlet Keys is the best work we've ever done. It's certainly the most work we've ever put into a product. So I'm very excited for it.
I am pumped. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's been episode 130, and we'll catch you guys next time.